Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah. So I want you to imagine that you've invited someone to your house and you call that friend and you say, come over. And that friend has his daughter with him. He may have another friend with him or her. And they ask, can we all come? And you say, yes, of course, because you're a very generous person. Now, when they come to your house, do you only serve the friend you invited? Or do you still offer food and drink to the daughter? Do you still offer food and drink to the other friend? Of course you do. Because out of your generosity, you don't want to let them leave empty handed. So when we come of Allah, for Allah, or whether you intended for the food, you're going to benefit. And this is actually, when you come to gatherings like this, generosity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Secondly, we go through many trials and challenges in our life. And as you may have seen, the topic of today, which is the topic of DAJJAL, as alayhi salatu wasalam said, that from the creation of Adam alayhi salam up until the final hour, there will not be a greater test than the test of the DAJJAL. Now, myself and yourself may think that I might not be around at the time of DAJJAL, so like why should I learn? Why should I benefit? Might not even apply to me. But then why would every single prophet warn their people about the test of the DAJJAL? If it was just for the final people, why would every single prophet warn their people? So inshallah, I hope this will be covered today. No pressure, Abdullah. So I'd just like to introduce you to our speaker today. It's Ustadh Abdullah. He's traveled all the way from London. He's sacrificing his time with his family for us to really benefit. So Ustadh Abdullah, he is a graduate from the London School of Economics. He is also a chartered accountant, and he has studied under various different scholars in the UK. So now is actually the time to get into that correct mindset and be ready to really benefit in what's being taught and taught today. So while the Quran is being recited, now is the time to do and implement what we've been teaching for many months and years now, to get into the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make you really benefit from the talk today, inshallah. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Ustadh Abdullah for the Quran recitation and the speech, inshallah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا حسنا ماكثين فيه أبدا وينذر الذين قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا ما لهم به من علم ولا لآبائهم كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم إن يقولون إلا كذبا فلعلك باخع نفسك على آثارهم إن لم يؤمنوا بهذا الحديث أسفا إنا جعلنا ما على الأرض زينة لها لنبلوهم أيهم أحسن عملا وإنا لجاعلون ما عليها صعيدا جرزا أم حسبت أن أصحاب الكهف والرقيم كانوا من آياتنا عجبا إذ أوى الفتية إلى الكهف فقالوا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا صدق الله العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, everyone. So those 10 ayat that was just recited, does anyone recognize what surah that's from? Just put your hands up. Sorry, go ahead. Surah Al-Kahf, yeah. So they're the first 10 ayat of Surah Al-Kahf. Does anyone know some of the virtues of Surah Al-Kahf? For that brother there with the, sorry, I forgot your name. Muhammad, that's it. Muhammad Amin, was it? Yes, yeah.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Yeah, protection from the DAJJAL.
Yes, that's right. Anything else that Prophet may have mentioned? Anything else that the Prophet may have mentioned about Surah Al-Kahf? Yes, sister? Yes, so a light from one Friday to another, yes. Yeah, so the Prophet mentioned two fadilah with Surah Al-Kahf, as the sister mentioned. A light shining on that person from one Friday to another. The Mashayikh mentioned this is a light of guidance, a light of protection. And the other blessing is that one will be protected from the fitna of al-Masih ad-Dajjal. So was it only for the people during the time of Dajjal that Prophet prescribed this, or is it for his entire ummah? It's for his entire ummah. Is there anything else that the Prophet may have prescribed in relation to the Dajjal to his Sahaba that which he practiced himself? Does anyone know what you do in tashahhud, just before doing, ending your salah, in the tashahhud, in position, just before ending salah? There's a dua the Prophet recommended. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min adhab al-qabr, min adhab jahannam, wa min fitnati al-mahya wal-mamat, wa min sharri fitnati al-masih ad-dajjal. So essentially it's a protection again. Protection from the punishment of the grave, the trials of this world, and obviously in our time, maybe not in Solihull, but for most of us, the topic of the Dajjal and the end of times, these things are a bit like Lord of the Rings. It's more like entertainment rather than actually, okay, why are we being warned about these things? Is it more just to, on a Sunday afternoon at the masjid, hear about what the Dajjal is going to do, and Ya'juj is going to come out holes from the earth and swallow up everything, and the beast is going to come out, and all of these kind of things. That's what some of us have unfortunately reduced this topic to. It occupies the realm of entertainment rather than actual implication. So that's what we want to focus on, is that thinking about the implications, how this relates to me. So you're lucky at this center you have Ustadh Abada and his brothers Marwan and Talha, Ustadh Tamina, brother Ikhlas and Saqib, you know, all these brothers that who I'm sure I'm not preaching to different people here, but you've heard about what they teach about is about practical Islam, practical purification, practical implication. So that's what we're going to focus on. It's not just taking facts and figures about the Dajjal, but really how does this relate back to me? And we're going to go on a little journey, something that many of us probably haven't heard of before or explored, but we are going to really psychoanalyze who the Dajjal. We're going to psychoanalyze him. In that process, we're going to go back to his origin. Going to go back to his origin, and then from his origin, how he became the Dajjal, and how that relates to us today. So that's what we're going to do today. So that's what I mean by. So actually, what do I mean by the Dajjal's genesis? What does the word genesis mean to you? Sisters, brothers, anyone, just put your hand up. Sister, yeah. Like a DNA? Yes, yeah. What? Yeah. I'm kind of going for a different angle, but that's a very interesting angle.
Like from the conception point to
Yes.
where we're at.
Yes. So the origin and the development, right? Traits. Yes, that's exactly where I was trying to get to. So yeah, so we're going to look at what the Dajjal's origins may have been, and how he became the Dajjal. So through this process, we're going to basically, not in too much depth because we don't have much time, profile who the Dajjal is and how he came to be. That's essentially it. And then how that now is relevant to me and you, inshallah. I'm just getting used to this screen. Can I go now? This way. There we go. All right. So the Prophet ﷺ, the only reason the Prophet ﷺ warned us about the Dajjal is because he's a danger for us. So in order to determine what mindsets and qualities makes one a target of the Dajjal, would it not be useful to psychoanalyze him to see what mindset and qualities created him in the first place? Right? And why is it important to study this to this extent? Is because Allah teaches through opposites as well. So we have a good example, which is the best of example is the Prophet ﷺ, right? He is the epitome of showing us what to do. So when we have the examples, and why does Allah mention shaitan in the Quran a lot? Or Fir'aun? Why are these beings, are they worthy of being in the Quran? Is it an honor for them to be in the Quran? So why are they in the Quran? Ikhlas.
To know what not to do.
Exactly. Because through opposites, we learn what not to do. So Allah, it's like there's no excuse for us. He's given us the perfect example what to do and the perfect examples of what not to do or what not to become. Hence why we have the examples of shaitan, of Dajjal, Fir'aun, so on and so forth. These evil individuals are essentially examples for us. Allah goes through a lot of details about their characteristics, what they did, how they went astray, essentially showing us, don't be like them. If you be like them, then you'll end up like them. And Dajjal also occupies this category of the perfect examples of what not to become. Hence why we study them and why we should study them or think about them. Otherwise, there is no need. You know, we could have, Allah, Prophet ﷺ may not have mentioned it. He would have turned up at one point and that's it. But it's actually a great blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that His messenger warned us about these things. And when it comes to, hopefully we don't get to see it, but it's that we don't have any excuse. We are not being set up to fail. We are being set up to succeed. That's the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the love of the Prophet ﷺ. He wants the ummah and the world to succeed. Hence, everything's laid in front of us on a plate. Whether it's up to us to choose halal and haram, essentially. That's what it comes down to. So the Prophet ﷺ, sometimes the Sahaba may have mentioned that sometimes the Prophet ﷺ would speak about the Dajjal and the warnings about him, I'm paraphrasing, to such an extent that they'll be so scared they'll think that the Dajjal's just behind them. Other times the Prophet ﷺ would diminish him like he's nothing. So you have this you have this balance with the Prophet ﷺ. So, and the purpose of this balance is that you shouldn't be so scared and so obsessed with it that you're immobile. Right? But at the same time, you should be aware of it because you'd be foolish not to. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? You have a balanced approach. And that's the nature of the Prophet ﷺ. Everything has to be looked at in equal lens. Fear and hope. In this case, fear and reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I can overcome him. That's essentially why the Prophet ﷺ had this dual approach when discussing the Dajjal. Prophet ﷺ also mentioned that the Dajjal will come at a time. I think Talha mentioned one of his promo trailers. What did he mention? Does anyone didn't watch it? The Dajjal will come at a time where he's not mentioned on the minbar. Sorry, go ahead, sister. Yeah, when people don't mention him. Yeah, sorry, yeah, that's right. And mention him, it's not just, from our understanding from Mashayikh, it's not mentioning him just like we mentioned him today, most of us just mention him like a story. But mentioning him so people will take warning. Not just, okay, yeah, it's a nice little entertainment story on a Sunday afternoon, but actually take warning about, okay, how does it relate to me? And how, the most fundamental reason is that the Prophet ﷺ said that before the Dajjal, al-Masih ad-Dajjal. What does al-Masih ad-Dajjal mean? I know there's some Arabs in here.
False Messiah.
False Messiah. So, essentially the Antichrist, and when we translate it in essence, al-Masih is a deceiving Messiah, this deceitful Messiah. Who is al-Masih then? Isa alayhi salam. So essentially he's an imposter. He masquerades as the Messiah, but he's the deceitful Messiah. So anyway, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that every prophet warned their nation about al-Dajjal. Even Nuh alayhi salam mentioned the nation about Dajjal. Why? Because he is, as Mashayikh mentioned, will prove this otherwise. He is the epitome of evil embodied in a human being. In a human being. He's the most evil human being to have ever existed. And like the shaitan, Dajjal isn't evil just for himself. What's one quality of shaitan that was probably first seen in history? What was he? Did he not? He didn't just want to go astray himself. What did he also want to do? Go ahead, brother.
He wanted to pull down the others who were
Yes.
Adam with him. So
Exactly. He was so vengeful against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He wasn't satisfied with him just, okay, I'm just going to disobey Allah. He wanted to take others with him. Others into his fate. Question is why? We'll explore that inshallah. So the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that this is probably, I'm actually getting to the end before getting to the meat of it. Prophet ﷺ mentioned that there, before the Dajjal, there will be 30 minor Dajjals. Well, what does that say to you and me? Sorry, brother. What's your name? Yeah. Ibrahim. What's my son's name? What's your name? MashaAllah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, wasn't this in reference to the false prophets? So there will be people who will claim to be prophets, but they are imposters. And then the greatest imposter is the one that comes at the end who claims to be God himself.
Yes. That's right. So how does that relate back to you and me? That's my question. How does this fact now relate back to you and me? Let's go ahead, brother.
It just shows us that we may already have an imposter on earth with us at this time.
Yeah.
And we just don't know about it.
More importantly, that imposter can be you and me. It's not confined to him. Does that make sense? So that's what's important, is to always relate it back to us. We might not be one of those 30, but we may share qualities that these 30 individuals share with Ad-Dajjal. That's what the Prophet ﷺ wants to us, is that checking ourselves. Are these qualities within me? Are these shaitanic, Dajjalic qualities within me? If they are, we need to do something about it. Yeah? So we begin with the story of Sayyiduna Tamim ad-Dari. Who's radiallahu anhu? Who's heard of this? Oh, we've got a couple of hands up. Sahaba before. Do you want to tell us a little bit about him, brother? It's going to be very interactive. That's just the way I work. Some say it's lazy, so I don't do much talking about it.
I don't know a lot about it, but obviously I've read kind of in passing, like with other aspects of about the Dajjal, where he was one of the companions and he was on a journey, and then something, I think it was in an island or somewhere, someone directed him. He found someone tied up, and then that person directed him somewhere else as part of the journey, and that's when he met a person or a being that, when he related back to the Prophet ﷺ, he was told that was the Dajjal. Yes.
So you've gone to the story straight away. I wanted the background for Dajjal. I'm not from the but yeah, the brother's right.
You know the entertaining part of it. So
Yeah. So go ahead. You go ahead, Ibrahim.
I think he was from the Sahaba. He was from the area of Palestine, and he was on his journey to go to the Prophet ﷺ. And on his way there, he boarded a ship. And it's an interesting thing. I've heard that there was a lot of activity in the ocean whilst the Prophet was. It's an interesting thing that I've heard, like that generally while the Prophet was around, there was a lot of activity even in the seas that were drawing people towards him. And what happened is he was on a journey with his friends, and he ended up on this island.
Okay, so you're going to say the same story again. We'll get to that story. Okay, yeah. So Sayyidina Tamim ad-Dari radiallahu anh was a Christian before he met the Prophet ﷺ, before he met Islam. I think the tribe, he was from one of the northern Arab tribes who are Christian. So they were obviously familiar with the Messiah, al-Masih, Isa, Sayyidina Isa ibn Maryam. So yes, going to the story, there is a famous story of that he was tossed. They say that the 30 or so men of his tribes, or the Christian tribes, they were sailors, and they were tossed in the ocean for 30 days because of bad weather. That's the story we're going to go into. So when we retell this story, what I want you to guys have a thinking hat on is what does this tell me about the Dajjal? That's the key question. That you want to take facts or implications about the Dajjal from this story. Yeah. So this narration comes from. Sorry, getting used to these slides. Yeah. So this is narrated by Sayyida Fatima bint Qais. I think she's famous for other narrations regarding divorce, right? Is that right, Talha? Not Talha Abada. Anyway, she's one of the female narrators of hadith. This is a very long. This comes from her essentially. This narration where the Prophet ﷺ gathered the believers to Masjid al-Nabawi, and then she found herself in the row of women immediately behind the row of men. And Prophet ﷺ mentioned to them that no one should leave their place of prayer. I'm going to shorten this a little bit. And he said, I have gathered you today because Tamim ad-Dari, this ex-Christian man, has come to me and he's told me things about the Dajjal which agree with what I have told you. Yeah? So, Tamim, then we are told, sorry, I don't know what's, it's going to get a bit of time, we're getting used to this. So we are told in the story that Tamim ad-Dari, radiallahu anh, who was a Christian, with 30 men from the tribes of Lakham and Judam, which I said were northern Christian tribes of the Arabs. They were tossed by waves in the sea for about a month. And then they finally found themselves stranded on an island. And when they arrived on the island, they took a small rowing boat to the island, and they were met by, they describe as a hairy beast, so hairy they couldn't distinguish its back from its front. And so they asked, who are you, what are you? And the beast, quote unquote, said, I am al-Jassasa. Abada, you're the only Arab that I can see here. I can know that you're definitely Arab speaker. What does al-Jassasa mean? Or what do you think it means? Does it have a root for spying? Justice, yes, that's right. So the Mashayikh mentioned that it's essentially the spy of Dajjal, the spy of Dajjal, something along those lines. Allah knows best. So they said, what is al-Jassasa? Because they didn't know what it was. They said, oh, then the individual, the hairy beast, said, oh, people, go to this monastery, for there is a man there and he's keen to meet you. So they make way, they're a bit scared, and they follow al-Jassasa to this monastery. Yeah? Abandoned monastery, we can assume. And what they find in there is a huge man, a very big man who was tied up, and his hands, it's mentioned that his hands were tied to his neck, and his legs were bound from the knees and the ankles with iron shackles. And so they asked him, who are you? And he responded to them, don't worry about who I am, essentially. I'm paraphrasing. I want to know who you are. So oh, sorry, missing some slides, but that's fine. So he proceeded to ask them several questions. Sorry, I'm just getting used to this left-right dynamic. So he asked them a couple of questions. First question, tell me about the trees of Baysan. This is the man asking the sailors. So they replied, what do you want to know about it? He said, I'm asking you whether these trees bear fruit, to which they said, yes, they bear fruit. So he responded, soon they will not bear fruit anymore. Then he asked them about Buhayrat al-Tabariya, the lake of Tiberias, which is also known as Lake Kinneret, and some other names as well. So it's a lake in Palestine. I think it's about northern Palestine as a lake. It's a very famous lake because it has a lot of biblical significances as well. So they said, Yahya, John the Baptist, would baptize people there. Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam also has some connection to that lake as well. So he said, is there water in that lake? And they responded, yes, there's plenty of water. To which he replied, soon it will be dry. And then they asked about the spring of Zughur, which is in South Syria. They said, what do you want to know about it? And he said, is there water there, and do the people still irrigate their crops with the water? And they said, yeah, there's plenty of water there. This particular narration doesn't imply it, but we can assume the implication was that soon it will become dry, right? And then he asked finally, tell me about the unlettered prophet. Has he come? What has he done? And then Sayyidina Tamim al-Dari and his companions mentioned that, yeah, he has arrived. He left Mecca and now is in Yathrib. Then this individual asked him, did the Arabs fight against him? He said yes. And then they asked, how did he deal with them? And then they responded that he had prevailed over the Arabs in his vicinity and they are obedient to him. And then he was shocked, like, has this really happened? I said, yeah, it's really happened. And then he goes on to finally mention who he is. He said, now I will tell you about myself. I am the Dajjal, and I will soon be given permission to emerge. So I will come out and travel the land, and I will not spare any town, but I will stay They are both forbidden to me. And another narration in Musnad Ahmed, he also it mentions he will not be able to enter Baytul Maqdis and the masjid in Sinin, in Tur, sorry, the masjid in Tur, which is Sinai. So he mentions that every time he tries to enter them, they are forbidden to him. Angels guard that holy sanctuary and they bar him from entering. So the Prophet ﷺ mentions after this, he struck the mimbar and he said, this is Tayba, meaning Medina. Did I not tell you about this before? The people said, yes. Prophet ﷺ said, I like the story of Tamim al-Dari because it agrees with what I used to tell you about him, about Mecca and Medina. But he is in the Syrian Sea or the Yemen Sea. No, rather he is in the east, he's in the east, and pointed towards the east with his hand. And then Sayyidah Fatima bint Qais mentions that this was such a significant event for her that she committed it to memory. So she said, I memorized this from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So she committed to memory, and this is almost like a unique narration because this isn't really mentioned very often elsewhere as well, to my understanding. Allah knows best. Some people have an issue with that. They say, oh, why is it not mentioned elsewhere? But our mashayikh, majority of mashayikh mentioned that this is a genuine narration and a genuine event. So, as I mentioned to you, what we're trying to achieve from this narration is start a basic profile of the Dajjal, right? I'll start off for you, all right? The fact that he's found imprisoned on an island in an old monastery, chained up, and is waiting to be released, what does that tell you about him? What can we draw from those facts? Yes, sister, what do you say? He's alive. Yep, that's good. That's yeah, he's alive. Someone else said something? Long life, yep. Anything else? Is it Abada, did you put your hand up?
No, but the fact that he's in chains.
What does that tell us? What could that possibly imply?
So that there's almost something criminal about him.
Yeah, that's very good. So, yeah, and anything else, sister? Yes, excellent. So very good, very good. You guys have covered it. So yes, he's alive. He's alive. Seems to have prolonged life for some whatever reason. He's in chains. He's imprisoned. We just relate it back to us. If Saqib gets chucked in prison, unless it's a restore government and they want him out of the country, we can assume that he's done something wrong, right? The only reason someone's in prison is because they've done a crime or they have a history of crimes and they're being, why do we say we need to rehabilitate them, right? Keep the society safe from them. With Dajjal's case, he's beyond rehabilitation, but we'll get to that. Yes, so if somebody's imprisoned, they have to be in prison. What does a monastery tell us? The fact that he's in a monastery or in an old derelict building. Someone put him there. Someone put him there. Possibly, we don't know. But someone put him there. Meaning, and the other thing is that, we'll get to that. So that's all right, yeah. You guys are quite smart, mashallah. Must be a Solihull thing. Somebody's told me that Dajjal lives in Solihull. I don't know what to say. I'm not going to say which Ustadh said that. Anyway. From the questions he asked, particularly about questions relating to the Prophet ﷺ, what does that tell us about him? Go on, brother Muhammad.
It tells us that he has knowledge of what's going on in the world and knowledge of the prophets coming as well. So he has that understanding of what's going on.
But more crucially than that, that's correct, but more crucially than that, what does that say about him? He's read the books, yes, but... Yes, yeah, excellent, yeah, that's right. But even more above that, what does that say?
Someone feeding him all of this or telling?
Yeah, that's right. But what does that say about him? If he knows the Prophet ﷺ, if he knows the books, if he knows the scriptures, what does that say about him?
His knowledge. He's knowledgeable.
Plans. Plans, yep, yep.
Like the
He's
shaitan,
knowledgeable.
yeah.
But crucial what I'm trying to get to is that
He's planning on how to.
he's
But
planning.
it's like,
Yeah.
But the shaitan was the same. He had the knowledge. He had the arrogance.
Yes, yeah.
It's
You're getting it
exactly-
on the right ways. Let me get there for you. 'Cause yeah, exactly. He's not far behind. I'll tell you what, we'll get there eventually. But what this says to us is that Dajjal knows what's right and what's wrong. So there's an opinion that's circulated in modern times that Dajjal is just a creature. He just pops up one day. Allah has programmed him to do what he does. He's a test from Allah. Allah sends him at the end of time and he does mayhem. He does all this shirk and all this chaos and all this fitna, and then he disintegrates because the narration mentions that Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam comes down and the Dajjal starts melting. So some people have said, I'm not going to mention who, but there's an opinion out there that basically says that Allah created Dajjal to be Dajjal. What does that imply? Astaghfirullah about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It implies, which is wrong, that Allah creates beings for the purpose of being evil. Why is that wrong? Allah is free from this, yes? Yeah.
وَمِن شَرِّ مَا خَلَقَ. Isn't it? It's the same as...
Yeah. وَمِن شَرِّ مَا خَلَقَ. So Surah Falaq. Yeah, is that from Surah Falaq, right?
Yeah.
From the evil that He has created. So what is meant by this is that not Allah creates evil. Allah doesn't create evil or doesn't command evil. Right? But Allah is the creator of all things. So He has created beings, two beings, jinn and man. They have the capacity of freedom of will. By exercising their freedom of will, you can do evil or do good. So evil can only come about from free agents exercising their freedom of will. Therefore, Dajjal cannot be programmed by Allah to be evil. He deliberately is evil, he chooses to be evil, and he chooses to be the Dajjal. And that's evident in the narration in and of itself. So if anyone comes to us and says, yeah, that Allah created Dajjal to, as a test, and he's going to come, and Allah, he's doing Allah, it's like he's doing Allah a favor to catch us out. That's not the way Allah works. Allah doesn't, He's not sent over here to catch us out. As I said, the Prophet ﷺ and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us ample tools to succeed. We are being set up to succeed. So Dajjal is an individual who chose to be the Dajjal. That's the key point. He's not an AI agent. Yeah, he's not an AI agent that Allah has, that's it, and even AI agents, you don't really have full control over them. No one really knows how they really work, but Allah knows best. Everyone's sending each other prompts now, aren't they? Prompt engineers. I'm so sick of AI, but anyway. I've got a feeling about AI and Dajjal, but that's for another day. It's another day, another discussion. So the key point is that Dajjal is an evil individual. He chose to be evil. He is not programmed by Allah to be evil. Allah has created him like He has created all of Bani Adam and Bani, whoever the first jinn was. Yeah, Allah bless them. We assume he's a good person. To set up for success. But when these people chose to be evil. By choosing to be evil, we are a result of our own choices. Yeah. So anyway, so he has knowledge about the world. He has knowledge about the prophets. He has knowledge. Ultimately, he knows the truth, and he chooses evil. Yeah. He also knows about the future. So he knows about what's going to happen in Surah Al-Tahir. He tells us the lake of Tiberias is going to dry up. He knows about the Prophet ﷺ coming. He knows about the dates of Baysan, the Zuhr spring. In fact, all of the signs that he mentioned, and we assume that they are mentions, they're signs precede. So we're safe for now. Yeah, it's actually drying up. Yeah, so we're safe for now. Yeah, it's actually drying up. Yeah, that's the other thing. The Israelis are drying up the lake. They use, I don't know, now we've got AI data centers. Whoever knew, whatever happened to global warming? Like, Now we've got data says drinking up all the water in there. It's like, Allah knows best what's going on, man. Things keep hopping and turning every 2 seconds. 1 minute it was electric motors, but now we're using up all the water in the world for people's obsession with ChatGPT, writing text messages for us. But anyway, so the Lake of Tiberias is yet to be dried up. There's another narration about the Lake of Tiberias actually, where the Prophet ﷺ mentions another narration with the Lake of Tiberias and the Dajjal mentioned. Does anyone know which one that is? That's the Great War, the Malhamatul Kubra. Anyway, it's a bit of a tangent. So there's another narration. The Prophet ﷺ mentions that when Sayyidina Isa ﷺ comes down, he comes down in a white minaret, I think it's in Damascus, and then he chases Dajjal, finds him in the narration. It was a Bab Lud, which is the gate of Lud. Lud is actually a place in present day Palestine. It's actually a place. There's a huge international airport there. I think the place existed. Lod, they call it Lod. I think it existed back in Prophet's time as well. So he catches them at Lod, and then Dajjal starts to disintegrate. And then in the narration, it mentions, so Dajjal's dead now, and Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, he gets Allah commands Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, take your followers and go up to Tur, because I have sent servants of mine, only I can destroy. So he says, وَيَبَثُ اللَّهُ يَأْجُوجَ وَمَأْجُوجَ وَهُمْ مِنْ كُلِّ حَدَبٍ يَنْسِلُونَ. So Allah sends Ya'juj and Ma'juj, and they descend from every elevation. And then he mentions in the narration that the first of them go past Lake Tiberias and they start drinking from it. And then the last of them reach its shores and they say, oh, there used to be water here. Is there a problem with this narration? With what we heard before? Go ahead. Should it not already be dried up? I don't have time today, but there's a massive theory about why Ya'juj and Ma'juj precede Dajjal, but that's another day. But essentially, I'm telling you, there's another narration with Ya'juj and Ma'juj, Dajjal, and like a Tiberias, Lake of Tiberias, all in one. These are key antagonists, if you like, of the same story. But that's a bit of a tangent. If you want to have a chat about that, we could chat about that later. Finally, he's a human being. Why is Dajjal a human being? A lot of people have theories that he's a jinn, or he's, like I said, some divinely constructed, humanoid that just has no free will and does, just out there to cause chaos. Why is he a human being? Let's keep it simple. Why is he human? The answer is very simple. Sorry? Yes, yeah. I mean, he's physically there, right? It wasn't a jinn that they saw a man. And also, when the Prophet ﷺ described him, the Prophet ﷺ described him anything other than a man. No. And this is also evidence why he is someone of free will, because human beings and jinn have that free will. So this should hopefully clear up any misconceptions. Did anyone have that misconception that Dajjal is, I don't know, the TV or a jinn or a half jinn, half man? Did anyone hear? Not here. It's actually quite common in other places. People have this misconception. No, he's a human being. Simply because the Prophet ﷺ, before Sayyidina Tamim al-Dari describes him in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ described him as such. What's the point going any further than that? And also, only human beings and jinns have the capacity of free will, so therefore he's one or the other. So it's a really rational deduction. Okay, he appears as a human being. We can't see jinns, unless they change form. That's another discussion. So in summary, we'll end part 1 here. He is a human being. We can also assume that he has Israelite background. By Israelite background, we mean he's a descendant of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, perhaps through Sayyidina Yaqub. This is from indications through other narrations. That there's other narrations that he's been born to Jewish parents, so on and so forth. It doesn't mean that he's a Jew. Does that make sense? And also the Sayyidina, if he is the false Messiah and the true Messiah was what? Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam. And what was he? He's Bani Israel, right? So he would have to come from, if you're going to masquerade as a false Messiah, you're going to have share some common qualities, right? Aren't you? That's first thing. So he deliberately deceives and misguides. We can understand that. He claims to be the Messiah. We can establish that from other hadith. He has knowledge of scriptures and prophecies. We haven't mentioned it here, but his physical features. What did the Prophet ﷺ mention about his physical features? Sister, yeah. Yes, he's blind, yeah, in one eye, yeah. Yeah. So if you take the narrations at face value, that essentially this is all right. Some narrations say blind in one eye, blind in the other eye. The descriptions like a floating grape. You go ahead, brother. Yeah.
The other thing was about he's gonna have his hair will be like dreadlocks. They'll look like snakes.
Yeah, it'll be curly hair. So when I was young, it's a joke I would often mention speak of DAJJAL. People look at, well, you're short. When it's summertime, you got reddish skin and you're a bit stocky. Are you DAJJAL now? DAJJAL's not a little Bengali. He's a Jew, right? He's like, I'm not DAJJAL. Don't worry about that. So, yes, sister, go ahead. I don't know about that one, but maybe you're right. I personally I'm not sure about that. Sorry, okay, go ahead, brother. Yeah, that's right. I can't remember the name of the Sahaba. You remember the name of the Sahaba? So you guys are right. He described him having curly hair, like locks around it coming from either end. I think it was one of the narrations. Kafara on his forehead. But what's the interesting feature about the kafara on his forehead? Go ahead, brother. Can read it. Yeah. So some of the mashayikh mentioned that it's not literally a kafir tattoo on his forehead or something like that. It's that you and the true believer, by looking at him, will recognize that he's a deceiver and a kafir, and the blindness in one eye. Ultimately, until we see him, we don't know the true nature of the meanings of these things. It could be as literal as kafir on his forehead. It could be as literal as blind one eye with the grape. Like, Allah knows best. We take it as face value for now, because Prophet says I mentioned it, and it's mentioned in many hadith. But he's short. Other narrations meant that he's got like pigeon toes. I don't know what that means, but pigeon toed. I think that means like, do you know how pigeons have separate? Okay, yeah. Okay, I see what you mean. Like kind of like webbed. Yeah, okay. I see. So perhaps like that. Also that he cannot enter Makkah, Medina. We've also mentioned Al-Aqsa and the Sinai. He has access to the unseen because he can see angels. He knows the angels are there. And also you could mention maybe perhaps that Al-Jassasa, if he's a beast of some sort, maybe he's some jinn. Allah knows best. The sailors didn't recognize him as a human being, so it may be something else. Before that, he was imprisoned for prior history of transgressions. That makes sense, right? Otherwise, why would you imprison a free, good person? That's what I'm saying. And he chooses to be the Antichrist. That's the key part. He chooses to be the Dajjal. And in addition to this, we haven't mentioned in this particular narration, but other narrations mention that some of the things that he will do. So one narration mentions that he will travel on a flying donkey, a metal flying donkey. Many modern people interpret that as, the modern aircraft. Allah knows best. He also he will command the rain to rain, skies to rain, so on and so forth. He will essentially command economic sanctions on people who don't want to follow him. So people who oppose him, they can't eat. They will not receive rain. They will not receive sustenance. They will not receive money or food or anything like that. So we'll have that sort of power that within he can give life, take death in his own means. He shows himself to be divine in the sense that he commands so much authority and power over people that through him, people can eat, people can starve to death, people can receive rain, people can not receive rain and die of drought. And that's why he's beyond these other, like Musaylim al-Kadhdhab, who are the Dajjals and so on. He's beyond them because his power will be such that he will be unmatched by any other tyrant before him. Yeah? And the ultimate thing is that he will do it in such a way that he will show himself to be good. That it will be in people's interest to follow him. Sometimes people are coerced into it. You can say that, okay, if I don't, then, I won't eat, or we'll starve. So we'll have all these kind of measures where people will be very difficult for people not to give in to him. So anyone who does, Prophet ﷺ mentioned that he will carry with him, Abada, correct me if I'm wrong, one path that looks like Jannah and another that looks like Jahannam. But the Jannah will actually be Jahannam and the Jahannam will actually be Jannah. There's many more things we can speak about him, but we want to get to the psychoanalyzing part, inshallah. So who is this individual? Yeah? So we've established he was put there. He had a prior history. He was, in fact, roaming the earth before this point. So he had a history before he became Dajjal. What is this history? Ultimately, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't given us clear-cut information about this. A lot of this, you can say, is inference. So before we go into it, I give the caveat that Allah knows best. These are some of the ideas that we've kind of developed, but Allah knows best. And it wasn't developed for the pure purpose of speculation, because speculation for the mere purpose of speculation ultimately renders no impact, no result, no change. There's no transformation. But through this exercise that we're going to go through, yes, there is an element of speculation here, because ultimately we don't have definitive proof of what we're about to say. Allah knows best. But through this, at least it's an exercise of trying to understand how an individual who says, I am Dajjal, could have become Dajjal. Because it's not a normal thing. There's only one other being that we can say has stooped to this level of disobedience, and who's that? A shaitan. I would even make the case that he is more powerful than the shaitan. Why would I say that? How can I assert that? Go on, Brother Ibrahim.
The shaitan only works off service, right? So he has no power beyond that. Whereas
through inspiration,
yes.
Yeah.
Whereas the Dajjal will bring you physically something that you can tangibly understand, and it will be way more convincing than just your thoughts.
Yeah, that's right. Sister, you want to add anything to that?
While shaitan can only whisper in your ear, Dajjal can impact your life.
Yes, that's right. Shaitan himself says that I only whispered to them. I didn't force them. Dajjal's in another category. He can physically do stuff to us, right? And just for the virtue of him being a human being, he's already more powerful than a jinn. Because on the hierarchy of species, we occupy a most powerful species. We are, just by Allah's design. There's nothing to boast about. This is the way Allah. How can we be boastful about what is nothing in your control? You see what I'm saying? Allah created us as human beings. And just by the hierarchy of species or creation, we are a more powerful being. And Dajjal, being that he is more powerful, he's more intelligent, he's more cunning, and he's more destructive. And perhaps why he was imprisoned, because there's shaitan imprisoned. So just the fact that he's imprisoned could be indicative that, there's two shaitans. You could say, the way my teacher described it is that amongst the creation, there are two who have reached the foremost of disobedience and estrangedness. And amongst them, the foremost amongst the jinn is a shaitan, Iblis, and the foremost among the human beings is a Dajjal. And amongst them two, one is imprisoned. You can make the argument, why didn't Allah just kill him off? Allah knows best why not, why he didn't. But he wasn't killed off, and maybe we'll see later on. So as this part one, is that a good setup of, do we have an understanding of who Dajjal is? So he is the king of deception. He will deceive. He himself knows that he's a deceiver, and he's deliberate in his deception. Okay. So the next part is to go into why an individual, the process of degeneration, essentially, of looking at how an individual can become like shaitan. And we'll look at a particular story that could tell us, in fact, who Dajjal could be, but Allah knows best. That person is definitely a Dajjal. Whether he's the Dajjal, Allah knows best. But in my opinion, I think he's a very good candidate of why he is the Dajjal. So essentially the next story we'll go into, next part, is we'll look into how this individual went through a process of degeneration from becoming, from being somebody who had everything, like I said, Allah sets us up to succeed, to somebody who deliberately decided to disobey and take others with him as well, inshallah. So we'll take, it's been about 50 minutes, hasn't it? So we'll take 5 minutes. How long should you take? 5 minutes? Take 10 minutes and then we'll regroup, inshallah. I know it's quite hot. Get some drinks or whatever and then we'll regroup, inshallah. How are you, Ibrahim?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وما أعجلك عن قومك يا موسى؟ قال هم أولئك على أثري وعجلت إليك رب لترضى. قال فإنا قد فتنا قومك من بعدك وأضلهم السامري. فرجع موسى إلى قومه غضبان أسفا قال يا قوم ألم يعدكم ربكم وعدا حسنا أفطال عليكم العهد أم أردتم أن يحل عليكم غضب من ربكم فأخلفتم موعدي. قالوا ما أخلفنا موعدك بملكنا ولكننا حملنا أوزارا من زينة القوم فقذفناها فكذلك ألقى السامري. فأخرج لهم عجلا جسدا له خوار فقالوا هذا إلهكم وإله موسى فنسي. أفلا يرون ألا يرجع إليهم قولا ولا يملك لهم ضرا ولا نفعا. ولقد قال لهم هارون من قبل يا قوم إنما فتنتم به وإن ربكم الرحمن فاتبعوني وأطيعوا أمري. قالوا لن نبرح عليه عاكفين حتى يرجع إلينا موسى. قال يا هارون ما منعك إذ رأيتهم ضلوا ألا تتبعني أفعصيت أمري؟ قال يا ابن لا تأخذ بلحيتي ولا برأسي إني خشيت أن تقول فرقت بين وبني إسرائيل ولم ترقب قولي. قال فما خطبك يا سامري؟ قال بصرت بما لم يبصروا به فقبضت قبضة من أثر الرسول فنبذتها وكذلك سولت لي نفسي. قال فاذهب فإن لك في الحياة أن تقول لا مساس وإن لك موعدا لن تخلفه وانظر إلى إلهك الذي ظلت عليه عاكفا لنحرقنه ثم لننسفنه في اليم نسفا. إنما إلهكم الله الذي لا إله إلا هو وسع كل شيء علما. صدق الله العظيم. And what made you, so Surah Taha verses 83 to 97, the translation of which, and what made you hasten ahead of your people, O Moses? He said, they are close behind me, and I hasten to you, my Lord, that you may be pleased. He said, indeed, we have tested your people after you, and the Samiri has led them astray. So Moses returned to his people angry and grieved. He said, O my people, did your Lord not make you a good promise? Then did the time seem too long to you? Or did you wish the wrath of your Lord should descend upon you? So you broke your promise to me? They said, we did not break our promise to you by our own choice, but we were made to carry loads of the ornaments of the people. So we threw them, and likewise the Samiri threw. Then he produced for them a calf. And they said, he produced for them a calf, a body that had a lowing sound. And they said, this is your God. And they said, this is your God and the God of Moses, but he forgot. They did not see that it could neither return a word to them nor possess for them any harm or benefit. And Aaron had already told them before, O my people, you are only being tested by it. And indeed your Lord is the most merciful, so follow me and obey my command. They said, we will never cease devoting ourselves to it until Moses returns to us. He, Musa alayhi salam, said, O Aaron, O Harun, what prevented you when you saw them going astray from following me? Have they then disobeyed my command? He, Harun alayhi salam, said, O son of my mother, do not seize me by my beard nor by my hand. Indeed, I feared that you would say you caused division amongst the children of Israel and did not observe my instruction. He, Musa alayhi salam, said, then what is your case, O Samiri? He said, I saw what they did not see, so I took a handful from them, from the trace of the messenger and cast it, and thus my soul prompted me. He, Musa alayhi salam, said, then go. Indeed, throughout your life you will say, do not touch me. And indeed, there is for you an appointed time which you will not fail to meet. And look at your God to which you remain devoted. We will surely burn it, then scatter it into the sea completely.
Jazakallah khair. Ustadh, Abada. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, the previous segment, we kind of built up a profile of who the Dajjal is in terms of his characteristics, some ideas about how he, that he's a human being. He chose to be the Dajjal. He chooses to misguide. He has a history of prior transgression, and ultimately that he chooses to be who he is. So who is this individual, and how did he become the Dajjal? As I've mentioned before, my Shaykh mentioned to me once that the foremost of evil and disobedient individuals amongst the jinn and human are Shaitan and Dajjal. So this poses the question, perhaps some of the reasons which led Shaitan to become Shaitan, or Iblis to become Shaitan, are the same or similar reasons of how an individual, whatever his name was, became the Dajjal. What do we know about Shaitan's origin? His jinn? Okay. By his characteristics, what was he known for? That's right. He was not just a devout worshipper, he was a wali. He was an intimate friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So much so that he had access to where? Jannah and the angels. This is an individual who wasn't a normal worshipper of Allah. He was an intimate, close friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So much so that Allah honored him and gave him close proximity to himself and to Jannah. He was in Jannah. Yeah? So what went wrong? Does everyone knows what went wrong? Is that sister? Sorry, what was your name, sister? Asiya. Azra, yes, go ahead.
He became jealous when Allah created Adam, thinking that he's better than Adam, and claiming that refusing to bow to Adam, and then basically his jealousy came out from what he had inside.
She's awesome. She's on. We're done, guys. Go on. MashaAllah. So yes, that's right. So it wasn't until the creation of Sayyiduna Adam alayhi salam where certain characteristics that he had within himself were not brought about. It was only when Sayyiduna Adam alayhi salam was created that characteristics that before this point had not surfaced were forced to the surface. And this was done by design by Allah only for him to recognize that he has these blemishes within his character that needed to be rectified. Obviously he wasn't he wasn't going to play ball with that. So what happened essentially is Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam was created, and Allah assembled the angels and assembled, and they asked them prostrate to him. Before that, even Allah mentioned that inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa, right? Is that right, Ustadh Abada? So indeed, I will establish upon the earth a khalifa, a representative, a vicegerent, a leader. Couldn't translate to many ways, but from understanding of Mashayikh, Khalifa ultimately means here Allah's representative, in the explicit sense that the physical representation, representative of Allah, Allah's authority on earth, as well as Allah's qualities, the means by which Allah manifests His qualities to creation on earth. So Allah declared that to be Sayyiduna Adam alayhi salam. Allah created Adam alayhi salam, and He essentially commanded the creation, the angels, submit. It was Allah asking to submit. So if Allah asks us to submit, whether it's prostrating, is that shirk? If Allah asks us to prostrate to something, is that shirk? So it's not. So some of the insight from the Mashayikh is that the act of prostration, the physical act, is not where shirk is. Shirk is the intention behind that. If you're worshipping that being for, it's separate. I'm not saying you start prostrating to people now. I'm not saying that. I'm saying in this circumstance, Allah ultimately asking him to prostrate. And what was the reaction of Iblis? He refused. And what excuse did he give? Sister, what's your name? Young sister, yeah? Hannah, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. So essentially, whatever excuse he gave, I'm sure he didn't mean that just because he was created from fire and he was created from clay, that he's better than the other. I think Shaitan's a bit more clever than that. But what this was actually saying was that I am better than him. And he gave the excuse of fire and clay as just like a thing to say, you can say. But really we're saying that I am better than him. Which begs the question, why did he think he was better than him? Why do you think he thought that he was better than him? And we're going to discount the clay and fire because that's clearly not a reason. Sorry?
His arrogance.
Why was he arrogant? What caused his arrogance?
He just thought he was like the most beloved to Allah.
Yeah.
Anyone takes his place.
Yeah, good. Sister? Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So essentially, his problem with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that I'm just going to paraphrase or just, anecdotally list a couple of things. That I've worshipped you, I've served you. It is mentioned that there's not a spot on earth that Iblis did not pray on. Did not prostrate to Allah. So this is the level of his worship. So he's thinking, I've worshipped you all this time, I've served you, I fought for you, I'm in Jannah, I'm close to you. I think the other, Abada, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't there some narrations that even mention that he used to teach the angels? Yeah? So he's thinking, who is Adam? He has no history. He has no service. He's done nothing. He was just created, and I'm supposed to prostrate to him? He's supposed to be my leader? I can't take that. Who is he? That's why he was not prostrated to. That's why he was disobedient. Not because he's created from clay and I'm created from fire. That's pathetic. That's not an excuse. A smart person, that's not a good enough excuse. But what he was really disguising was his entitlement. He felt entitled. When Allah declared, I am going to establish a Khalifa on earth, who did Iblis think that should be? Himself. He was entitled and he had the expectation that he was himself. So when Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam was created and Allah chose him, these qualities of entitlement, arrogance, it's very easy to be humble amongst people who are, it's very easy for me, say, for example, I'm a finance director, yeah? All my subordinates, everyone's just my subordinate. Say I'm a CFO, for example, yeah, I'm an accountant. Everyone's my subordinate. It's very easy to be humble then, because there's no one above you. Yeah? And it's also very easy to be arrogant because there's no one, everyone's below you. But it can also be very easy to be arrogant, you see. Very easy to be humble. Because the reality is that nobody's on your level. So why flex to them? This is what I'm saying. Why flex to them? Because they're not on your level. So who you flexing to? You've already got the position. So Iblis, in absence of, in his eyes, and ultimately, Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam was not his competitor. Allah doesn't create competition between his servants. We'll go to that after. He was not his competitor. But Iblis alayhi salam, astaghfirullah. Maybe he was Iblis alayhi salam at one point, before he became Iblis, Shaitan Rajim. Yeah? Allah knows best. But Iblis at one point, I lost my train of thought. Iblis at one point, he didn't have a competitor. And when he didn't have a competitor, in his eyes a competitor, because the more appropriate word perhaps, it's not coming to me, a contemporary, someone on his level. He didn't have anyone on his level. So certain qualities did not come to the surface. Certain illnesses and diseases that he may have harbored did not come to the surface because the circumstances didn't warrant for those things to come about. So as I'm saying, like the example of the CFO is that everybody's, everyone's junior to you. So what's the point flexing? He's going to be helpful. If he's a good person. Iblis was a good person. Iblis, ultimately, Allah doesn't, give someone access to the heavens because they had no good in them. He must have had some good in him. But his sincerity, that's the thing about ikhlas and sincerity, it's not a fixed state. It's always changing. So you could be the highest of the high at one point in your life, and tomorrow, ikhlas, sincerity can go out the window, and that wipes out everything else. So that's why one of the phrases that Ustadh Harun mentioned, I think Ustadh Harun came up with coined the phrase that was one of our teachers, one of my teachers, that doubt, the mother of ikhlas is self-doubt. Is your mother called self-doubt, ikhlas? you had to be the one that said it, innit? Yeah, so the mother of ikhlas is self-doubt, meaning that one should never think, I had ikhlas at this point. Because when you think that, you probably didn't have ikhlas. Or likely didn't have ikhlas. Because true ikhlas is that knowing that anything that I can do is never worthy of Allah. If it's never worthy of Allah, then I can never be the judge of ikhlas. Does that make sense? So this is where shaitan went wrong. He may have had ikhlas in the past. He may have a history of piety and goodness and service and devotion, but that went out the window when ikhlas was tested. And when he was tested, what unraveled was that really he was doing it for himself. It was all for himself. He wanted the rank, he wanted the status. And when he was presented with the reality where these things were not, in reality they were, but in his eyes he did not see as the case, then everything that was festering inside of him that hadn't surfaced came to the surface. And even then, look at the beauty of Allah and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Did Allah cast him out of Jannah straight away when he refused? He remained there. Because where did Iblis ultimately deceive and trick shaitan? Where did shaitan trick Adam alayhi salam and Hawa? In Jannah. Meaning that Jannah is not, he still was in the company of angels. He still had that time. But he locked himself and resolved himself. Because at that point, Iblis says to Allah, what? Allah says that he cast Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam and Iblis and Hawa out of Jannah and sent them to earth. And Iblis alayhi salam makes vows that I will, he still even makes dua to Allah, because who does he ask Allah for long life? Who does Iblis ask for long life? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So ultimately, this is the madness. This is a kafir. The ultimate kafir isn't the one who denies Allah's existence. Is the one who knows Allah exists, knows His qualities, but yet does what? Out of whatever reason, they are defiant. That's the kafir, because they are ungrateful. Ultimately, that's the epitome of kufr, is what Iblis did. Because he knew who's the one that can even give him long life. Who's the one who gives him rank? Who's the one who gives him blessing? Who's the one who gives him whatever he wants? Allah. He still asks Allah. Even though he wants to disobey Allah, he asks Allah for long life. Sorry, sister, go ahead.
So I might be going off on a tangent, but is there any mention of, like, you know, with us as humans, we get waswas. What happened to Shaitan to make him build up all of that stuff, and that surfaced when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked him to bow to Adam alayhi salam? Is there any mention?
Good question. So ultimately this shows us what? Waswasa isn't really a powerful thing. What led Shaitan astray is himself. And similar to us, who is ultimately responsible for what we do is us, because we have the choice. So waswasa is not that powerful. Yes, it's there. It's distracting. It can impact you. But what's more powerful is your nafs, is you. Is what you possess. By you, I mean what the nafs. The real you is, who's here has heard the 5 entities, body, mind, heart, soul, yeah? You've heard that before. So the real you is who? Your spirit, your ruh. Your nafs is not you. Your nafs is a part of you, but it's not you. Right? The ego, or in other words, the ego. So essentially, why we mention the story of Iblis is that he's an archetype for all evil, of all evil people. And therefore, the Mashaykh mentioned he's also the archetype for Dajjal. Because he's the original defiant. He's the original Dajjal, if you like. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Sorry. And this process of degeneration didn't come overnight, by the way. So people don't just erupt in misguidance. Yeah? There's a process. Sometimes it's quiet, sometimes it's explicit. In Iblis's case, it was quiet. It was festering. It was the sense of entitlement and arrogance that was building up without being mentioned, without him being explicitly showing it or displaying it. But it was there. Because ultimately he saw himself. So these blessings that Allah gave him, instead of him seeing them as blessings and ultimately from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what did he see them as? He see them as they are a result of his own doing. He attributed it to himself. That was the ultimate flaw. So that's why we always try, whenever we have any goodness or receive any goodness, we attribute it to who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the moment we attribute to ourselves, that's waiting for disaster to happen. So I'm sure you've all heard the conscious, unconscious dynamic where, things established in the subconscious over repetition. So there's perhaps a long series of repetitive mindsets and qualities that Iblis developed. What do I mean by mindset? Sorry. We're a bit tired, I'll say it for you. It's the established patterns of thinking through which one views the world and directs actions and responses. That's what a mindset is. So established repetitive patterns of thinking. Qualities. The installed character traits that affects one's actions, emotions, and beliefs. Does that make sense? So there were certain qualities and mindsets which developed in Iblis that created Shaitan. Similarly, this is what happened with Dajjal. Inshallah, we'll go into that part of the presentation now. Sorry. So, Ustadh Abada, where is it? Sorry. Ustadh Abada recited from Surah Taha. So the particular, did anyone pay attention to the recitation, or you also? What was the ayat? There's 83 to 97. What were those ayat retelling from the? What were they about? Sorry, sister. Yeah. So this was a retelling of the incident of the Israelites worshipping the golden calf. Yeah. So in this story, we will look at 2 individuals. One is Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, and the other individual is As-Samiri. As-Samiri was the individual who deceived the Israelites into worshipping the golden calf. Interestingly, in the books of tafsir, it is mentioned that As-Samiri's birth name is Musa as well. Musa ibn Dhafar. And then you have Musa ibn Imran, which is our Nabi, Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. They were contemporaries. Sorry. Sorry, where's the mouse gone? There we go. They were contemporaries. So what do we know about what the Pharaoh did during the time of Musa alayhi salam to the Israelites? What did he do to the young babies, sorry, go ahead brother. He killed them. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail now because it's already 6:15. I'm going to rush through some of the details. But the Pharaoh, he had a policy out of fear because he had some dreams that one of the sons of the Israelites will destroy his kingdom. So what he did is that he wanted to kill all the newborns, that every newborn male. His advisors said to him, look, if you kill them all, then we won't have the next generation of slaves. We need slave men. Yeah. So they came to a compromise where a compromise was that every other year they would cull. Essentially, it was a culling of male babies. So Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam and Musa ibn Dhafar happened to be born in the year where Pharaoh had the policy of killing the babies. So, long story short, both Musa's mothers were faced with a problem. They didn't want their babies to die. Yeah, they didn't want their babies to be killed. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspired Sayyidina Musa's mother to. There's several developments in the story. One part of the story is that she hides him in the oven, and the Pharaoh's men come and they don't look in the oven, and then they go, or the oven's hot, something like that. But eventually she releases Sayyidina Musa in a basket in the Nile, and that basket ends up where? At the house of Pharaoh. Who finds it? SIEA, Sayyida SIEA, who convinces Pharaoh was a husband at the time, which goes to show that good people can have treacherous spouses. It can happen. She was a righteous woman. She petitioned. She convinced Pharaoh, look, let's raise this child as our own, and Allah put mercy in his heart, and Pharaoh agreed. So Musa alayhi salam, as a baby, as a child, was raised in the house of Pharaoh. Pharaoh ended up raising him. So what happened to Musa ibn Dhafar? So this is from Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas, which is found in books of tafsir. I think Jalalain. Tafsir Jalalain? Ibn Jarir. I think Tafsir Ibn Jarir. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas mentions that similarly, Musa ibn Dhafar's mother, we can assume she's a righteous woman. Just because you have a misguided child doesn't mean you are misguided. Similarly, just because you're prophets can have misguided children. Sayyidina Nuh alayhi salam is one of his sons who did what, your own piety or your own evil does not predicate your offspring or your ancestors. You don't bear the sins or the good deeds of others. Essentially, it's both ways. So anyway, Musa ibn Dhafar's mother, she also couldn't face the reality of her newborn or young infant being killed by Pharaoh. So she took the child, the infant, took her up into a cave in the mountain, and then hid the child in there, and entrusted the care of the child to Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did is that He commanded Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam to now raise that child. In some narrations it mentions Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam would suckle As-Samiri, one finger milk, one finger honey, one finger water, something along those lines. And Sayyidina Jibreel alayhi salam was essentially the foster carer of that child. So now you have two realities, quite strange. One Musa is being raised by an angel. The other Musa is being raised by a shaitan. Yeah? So they have both miracles at birth. And then, so the upbringing, obviously, one is raised in the house of Pharaoh, and the other is raised in the house of, not in the house, but under the care of Jibril alayhi salam. And, typically you'd assume, sometimes you are a product of your upbringing in the sense that you are influenced, at least as a child. If you're in bad company, if you're raised in bad company, then you would pick up those traits as well, right? So this didn't happen to Musa alayhi salam. Alhamdulillah, he had the protection of SIEA, which kind of maybe perhaps, or definitely shielded him from the evil character of Pharaoh rubbing off on him. As well as Jibril alayhi salam, if he's actively engaged in the physical nurturing of Musa ibn Dhafar, or we'll call him the Samiri. Perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not call him Musa in the Quran just to sanctify Musa alayhi salam, just to honor Musa. So maybe we will stop calling him Musa ibn Dhafar, we'll call him the Samiri from now on. Because there's only one true Musa, right? So he was, if Jibreel alayhi salam is nutritionally raising him, perhaps he would also, he's the messenger of messengers. Is it beyond, reasonable assumption to think that he was also spiritually nourishing him as well? Yeah. So you had two situations where one is being raised by Fir'aun, the other is being raised by Sayyidina Jibreel. Allah mentions that, when Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam grew up, so he didn't grow up in the hardships that the Israelites had. He grew up in a palace. He grew up with safety. He grew up with luxuries. He grew up with everything that anyone could ever think of at the time. The best of the best quality of life. Yeah? He didn't suffer like his people in the same sense, because he was an adopted child of Pharaoh. Right? So he had all the luxuries. Whereas a Samiri, after a while, he's obviously grown up and he's absorbed back into Israelite society. Yeah. So he's fully engrossed in the Israelites weren't just, they were enslaved, and they had been enslaved for a couple of 100 years at this point. So they had to go through a lot of hardships. So he would have been in that. He wasn't a privileged member of society in that sense. They were enslaved people. Allah even says that, and when he reached full strength and maturity, we gave him wisdom and knowledge, and this is how we reward good doers. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaking of Musa alayhi salam. So even before prophethood, what Allah says about him is that even despite all his, in his eyes, it was ultimately a blessing. Allah gave him all the goodness that anyone could, in terms of worldly goodness. He remained pure inside. It did not corrupt his character. Right? And in many a case, those who are given these, what happens? Sometimes when people get a little bit of money in our community, start driving nice cars or have nice watches or whatever, for some reason that becomes a reason to be thinking that you're better than people. It's just a natural thing that happens to a lot of people. But that didn't happen with Musa alayhi salam. Allah says that he was rewarded for being a good doer, meaning that even before he was rewarded, he was doing what? Doing good. So this was the nature of Musa alayhi salam. So what can we assume about the Samiri? We kind of have to work backwards. It's a little bit unfair on him because we don't ultimately know what he was like, but we're working backwards because we said the principle of that an eruption of evil doesn't come about overnight. It comes about after a process of gradual degeneration. Yeah. A simple principle, like I think it was Abada, correct me if I'm wrong, was a Sayyidina Umar when a thief was caught and he said, "Oh, it's my first time." And Sayyidina Umar said, "No, if it was your first time, you would not have been caught." Is that right? Something along those lines. Meaning that it's when you're caught, when you do such a massive an evil, it wasn't just overnight. You weren't just unable to control yourself overnight. There was markers, there was steps towards that. We may not be oblivious to it, but it was happening in the background. Does that make sense? So we know what the Samiri became. From the ayat of Surah Taha, we know that he became a great deceiver of the Israelites. And we'll go into how great this deception was. So if he became that, this didn't happen overnight. He went through a process of degeneration. So at this point in his life, when he's a young adult, he's grown up thinking that, okay, let's look at, compare, why, there's a reason why I mentioned the story of Shaitan at the beginning, because we have to draw parallels with him. Yeah. So he's grown up thinking, he's a young adult growing up thinking, yeah, I was raised by who? Jibreel. I was saved by Allah. Allah saved me. I am what? I am the best. I am good. I am chosen. He may not be saying it, but we can imagine these things playing in his mind. He may not be telling anyone this. At the same time, one of our mashayikh said that he was actually also a wali of Allah. Before he did what he did, As-Samiri was a wali. He was a wali of Allah, like Shaitan was a wali. If you're a wali, I'm not a wali. I don't think I'm a wali. I'm definitely not a wali. Yeah, but I don't think I'm doing major evil. Yeah, I'm not. I don't think so. Maybe I am. But what I'm trying to say is that an average person is a good person. He's a decent person. They're not harming. They might be doing a little bit bad here and there. But the average person, most people are okay. They're not evil people. A wali has to be a very exceptionally good person. So the Samiri was a wali, which means that he was exceptionally favored, or exceptionally some qualities about him which Allah rewarded for in order to become a wali. At the same time, awliya can fall. Many awliya have fallen. It's not safe. No one's safe until they've taken their last breath. Yeah? Like Shaitan is a prime example. So anyway, so what can we think that you guys have answered this as? He could be perhaps developing these. And the other thing is that the Israelites were expecting. They've been expecting a Messiah for thousands of years, man. Messiah's come and gone. So they were expecting, Allah, because these were people who are accustomed to Anbiya. They've had before Musa alayhi salam. Who was before Musa alayhi salam? Yusuf. Yes, who was before Yusuf? Yaqub, Ismail, Ishaq, Lut alayhi salam. They were accustomed to prophets. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're one of the people who are Allah blessed with many prophets and Anbiya, and they in turn also did many dhulm against the prophets and Anbiya. So there were people who had a strong link to prophets and messengers. So there was an expectation amongst the people who we've undergone several, decades, hundreds of years of hardship under the regime of Pharaoh. They were expecting respite, and respite in the form of a messenger or a Messiah to come and lead them out. And who do you think may have thought, okay, my people are expecting the people, that could be me, a person, that could be me. Who do you think could, Musa alayhi salam and the Samiri, who do you think would be more likely to think that? Samiri, why? Because of his upbringing. Because of his upbringing, it's very easy. You can imagine how he could have developed that. Because he mistakenly, as I said to you, it's a very subtle thing. Yeah? It's a very subtle thing when we attribute goodness that has nothing to do with us to ourselves. So Allah favored him and Allah saved him. Allah gave him the company of angels. Allah gave him the honor of being raised by an angel, and the honor of many other children were not chosen. Many other children had been killed by Pharaoh, but he was spared. So if he had a corrupt or a heart that was on the path of corruption, you can imagine these seeds of arrogance being placed in there, thinking that, yeah, maybe that's me. I'm the one. I'm the one who will lead my people astray. Who else was raised by an angel? Who else did Allah save? Or Musa alayhi salam was saved, or that Musa was saved, but he's raised in a palace. He does nothing for the people. That's what he's thinking. Because it's mentioned that he used to be. Another thing is that the word Samiri is a very interesting word, because the classical Mufassirun interpret that as meaning Samaritan. But the Samaritans as a group of people did not exist in the time of Musa alayhi salam. The Samaritans came about after the kingdom of Judah split. That was about 800 years after. So who was a Samari at the time of Musa alayhi salam? You could make the argument maybe it's the name of the family. Maybe a family called Samari. But when you look at the word Samar, I think is in Hebrews, Shamar. Who knows what Shamrim is? Have you heard anyone heard of Shamrim? So they're like guards. You know, do you not have a certain Jewish community, an Arabic word? It doesn't have a meaning in Arabic. It's in the original meaning of whatever of religious guardianship. So they didn't have the rabbinical, the priestly caste amongst the Jews, that they were descendants of Harun alayhi salam. So the structured religious schooling amongst the Jews was post Musa alayhi salam. So before then they still had, they were people of Tawheed. They had several, maybe tens of prophets that came before them that gave the Tawheed. So their issue wasn't Tawheed. The issue wasn't shirk like it was for the Arabs. Yeah? The issue was other things. Which means that even if you have Tawheed, you're not safe. We aren't safe. We are still subject to our own nafs. We could do madness still. So anyway, so Samiri has a connotation of being like a religious guardian, religious figure. We can safely take that assumption from the name Samiri. So he, even if he didn't have a religious thing, later on in the story, he was somebody with influence. I will show why. So anyway, they're now adults. So what happens to Musa alayhi salam when he's a fully grown man? What happens? Sorry, sister at the back. Yeah.
Basically, incident happened where Musa was exposed to judge between two people. One was one of the Pharaoh man, and the other one was a Jewish person. And then accidentally he killed a man, and he had to escape from Pharaoh because he killed the Pharaoh man. So I don't know if you know the background, but that's the turning point where Musa had to escape from the palace and from the Pharaoh.
Yeah. So this is right, that Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam saw two men having an altercation. One was an Egyptian Copt, the other one was Israelite. He intervened. In his intervention, a man was killed. And it was an accidental death. It wasn't what we would call manslaughter, I think, like if you can say it's manslaughter. It wasn't intentional. It could be something as simple as Sayyidina Musa putting his hand out, the man slipped and died. Ultimately, it was the hand of Sayyidina Musa that caused the events, but it wasn't a deliberate killing. Immediately as it happened, what does Sayyidina Musa do? He calls out to Allah for forgiveness. Oh Allah, forgive me, I have wronged myself. Allah says, oh, I am forgiving, I forgave him. Ultimately, did he have to ask for forgiveness? It was an accident. Are you sinful? No. But this is the quality of Anbiya. This is the quality of pure people. Like when Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam, when he realized the mistake of taking from the tree, it was a mistake, it was a forgetfulness, it wasn't deliberate. Are we sinful for forgetful things? No. Sorry. Yes, that's the key quality, is that they attributed all goodness to Allah, and anything wrong they will attribute to themselves. Yeah? So this, your sister's right, this was the turning point where Sayyidina Musa could not stay in Egypt anymore. He had to leave because no matter how, he was ultimately not one of them. He wasn't a Copt. So it's a bit like reform and restore. You can do all the good in the country as you want, but you're brown. So you won't be, when England when Rashford and everyone win a game, yeah, great. But when they lose, they're black. Yeah, that's what people are like. They forget. So they forgot he was never one of them. They never really accepted him. They tolerated him for the sake of Musa, so for the sake of Pharaoh. So as soon as they heard that there's an incident where one of their own had been killed as a result of action of Musa, they turned against him. So they were looking for him. So he had to escape. Some people say it was a dark complexion. I think so. Allah knows best. But I mean, it's not inconceivable. They're in a hot region, aren't they? So, you know, he could have been. And I think I think my teacher had mentioned to that, like olive, darkish complexion. I think he mentioned hadith as well, isn't it right? Musa alayhi salam was a dark complexion. Was it Isa alayhi salam?
I can't remember.
Yeah, I think there is a narration, something, but Allah, I'm not certain myself. So anyway, Musa alayhi salam left, and he left for 10 years. He ends up in Midian. Some say that he ends up, well, before he meets the man, he ends up in Midian. He sees, comes to a well. He sees a couple of young women being harassed by some men about their sheep. You know, they were trying to water their flock, and he intervened, and you know they were very happy. So they said, "Look, we want you to thank you for helping us. Our father does not have any sons, so we have to do this work. He's an old man." So they said, "Look, please come back with us. We want to thank you and honor you and take you to our father." So he said, "Okay, fine, I'll go with you." But this is interesting. This is again, this shows the character of Anbiya. They operate on another level. So sorry, sister. Yeah. Yeah. So we're gonna get to that. Yeah. So he ends up. So he ends up on walking back to their family tent to meet the father. Some say that the man that he met is Shu'aib alayhi salam. Allah knows best. Some say Shu'aib alayhi salam, the prophet. So anyway, so the daughters are taking him back, and then he says to them, "I will be in front of you, and you will direct me from, like, as you're behind me, where to go." Why? Because he was extra vigilant of his gaze. If it was me, "Oh yeah, you show me where to go, I'll just follow you." Sayyidina Musa wasn't even going to look at them, but to be extra precautious, he was going to step in front. But this, as I'm trying to say, is that this is the way that Allah's closest operate on another level, because you and me would not have ever thought of that. "Oh yeah, I can follow the sister, no problem. She's walking in front of me." There was no desire in him to look, but because he knew. Because he knew that he's a human being, he will still put precautions in place. It's just a side point, but anyway. So he ends up at the house of Jethro in the biblical scriptures, and he takes up employment with the man. And then I can't remember the details, but I think it's about 10 years, and then about 8 or 9 years. And the old man said, "If you do another year extra, then I would consider it a favor." And Musa alayhi salam completed 10 years. And yes, sister's right. What was your name again? Hannah. He married one of the daughters of the man. And so he left Egypt, went to somewhere better, became a shepherd. There's a common theme amongst a lot of the Anbiya, they become shepherds. And he was under the employment and contract of this old man and married one of his daughters. So after the 10 years elapsed, he was, well, before we go there, so what was happening during this time back in Egypt? So Musa alayhi salam, the other Musas outside of the scene, the Samiri is there. We know later on, look guys, this is an individual who manages to trick a monotheistic people into worshipping a golden calf. We are very accustomed with the mentality of Bani Israel in our scripture, the way, how difficult they were with Musa alayhi salam. Do you think any old random guy has the capacity just to trick these guys into worshiping golden calf? No. What does, as I said, put your thinking critical hats on. If he was able to trick them into worshiping the golden calf, say about him and his influence amongst the Israelites. Influential. He wasn't a nobody. He wasn't a regular. To to worshiping a golden calf, he was brutality. Like the Dajjal, he would have had religious understanding, religious knowledge. So perhaps he was somebody, as I said, the name Samiri, guardianship connotation. In Hebrew, in original Hebrew, it has the connotation of a priestly-like individual. So he had someone of influence. So again, so in this time, what's happening? More, as I said, this eruption that happens later on doesn't come about all of a sudden. We can assume these these feelings of entitlement, these feelings of expectation. Yes, I'm just waiting for Allah's revelation to come to declare me as the chosen one. I'm going to lead my. That could have been happening, and it was happening. We can see later. So what happens later on? Musa alayhi salam completes his contract with some say Shu'aib alayhi salam, and then he left. He left wherever they were in Midian, and he was going past Mount Tur. So his family were camping outside at the base of Mount Tur, and then he saw a burning bush up in the mountains. So he traveled up the mountains. I'm going to get to the story. Long story. It's already been almost 2 hours. He essentially saw a manifestation of the bush of Allah was speaking through the bush. So it's not Allah wasn't in the bush. You have to be very careful how we describe things. Allah was communicating through the bush to him, and it's there and then that Allah announced him to be the prophet. What was Musa alayhi salam's response? Does anyone know?
Musa Islam had a speech impediment, and he didn't feel he could guide his people, or he had the ability to do that.
That's right. So Sayyidina Musa didn't respond, oh yeah, thanks Allah, I've been waiting for this. About time. Astaghfirullah. That's what the summary would have been done. Sayyidina Musa's response was what? Humility. He was not even expecting it. He never had this expectation. His reaction shows that. In fact, he humbled himself to Allah, saying that, look, you have chosen me, Allah. I don't consider myself worthy. I don't consider myself worthy of this task. And then Allah, he says, look, yeah, right. He considered himself deficient in speech. That's how he considered. He was definitely not. He was definitely not, because he was Kalimullah, right? Yeah? He was definitely not. But he considered himself deficient in speech. And in many ways, he wanted to share that blessing of prophethood with somebody else as well. Because at that point, who else did Allah declare as well as a prophet? Harun. So he not only saw himself as undeserving, he also wanted, ultimately it's a blessing from Allah. It's a blessing and it's twofold. It's a great burden now and a great test and a great responsibility. Yeah? But ultimately you have Allah's help. So he came away with Allah's help, and he came away with the help of being Sayyidina Harun. Sayyidina Harun is not his younger brother. Who is Sayyidina Harun? His older brother. And who had authority? Sayyidina Musa had authority. He was a higher prophet. Yeah? So he responds to the news with humility and gratitude. Yeah? And also to an extent, you can make we can see that he also wanted to share that blessing with somebody else. How often do you get two Anbiya at the same time? Do you know any other stories of two Nabis operating together? Is there any other examples of that about that? Dawood, Sayyidina Dawood and Sulaiman. But even then, there was a little bit of a hierarchical difference, because it's almost like Sayyidina Sulaiman, Sayyidina Dawood preceded him. Right? But Musa and Harun, they were at the same time. They were hand in hand, two brothers, prophets at the same time. Obviously, say the Musa taking the higher level. Sorry, sister, yeah. Yes, but they weren't together. I mean, they were in different localities, right? Yaqub and Yusuf. Yeah, but as I'm said, there was a, they weren't, Sayyidina Musa he basically wanted a right-hand man. But the other prophets, they were prophets in different localities. You see what I'm saying? Well, maybe there are other examples. Yeah. So anyway, now Musa alayhi salam comes back to Egypt. He comes back declaring himself as a prophet and his brother as a prophet. Imagine what's happening to the Samiri now. Yeah? He's probably thinking, Allah chose 2 prophets and I didn't even make one of them. Yeah? So what's happening? How did Shaitan feel when Adam alayhi salam was chosen? What was going through his mind was all the reasons why he was better. Now the Samiri, and we're gonna be working backwards again. The Samiri, I can't not emphasize this enough. The level of deception and skill required to deceive the Israelites into not just worshipping a golden calf, but helping him make it, yeah, is immense. Yeah? So he must have been gobsmacked. How can that Musa be the chosen one? How can he be the chosen one? He was raised in the house of Pharaoh. He had all the luxuries of the world. He had no difficulty. He had the safety, security, comforts of the palace. Where I was raised by an angel. I was taught by an angel. I was fed by an angel. And I endured the hardships of my people. And I helped my people. I consoled my people. I counseled my people. How can he be the one that Allah chose? Can we see that parallel? We can make that assertion quite easily. So this is when you can say his flaws are intensifying. Also, and then we'll see what happens with so on and so forth. So Musa, Allah sent many trials and tribulations upon the Egyptians to basically put fear into their hearts and say, look, submit to Musa, submit to my command, and let the people go and submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But they, obviously, Pharaoh, he was Pharaoh. He thought that he was Allah. He thought that he was God. He didn't want to submit to Musa. But Pharaoh's not the object of this story. There's a whole, side to that. There's another shaitan that we could talk about one day. So then what happens? Eventually Fir'aun's like, okay, fine, go. I've had enough, go. So he lets them go. But then what happens? He gets cold feet again. He gets regret. So he chases after them. And then, the whole thing about, the whole incident of Allah splitting up the sea. So the Israelites, Bani Israel, have safe passage over the ocean, over the sea to the other side, and Allah drowns Pharaoh. So they're now on the other side. Yeah. So these people, you've got to remember, these people have seen miracle after miracle after miracle. I would make the argument perhaps no other people in any other time has seen as many miracles as they have seen in a lifetime. Yeah? Which makes the incident of the golden calf even more bewildering. Because they're not like you and me. I have seen miracles. That's another topic for another day. But I haven't seen the ocean open up. Allah, I haven't seen blood, locusts, and there's more miracles to come still. So they're wandering, not wandering, but they're traveling in the deserts. They get hungry, so they ask Musa alayhi salam. Musa alayhi salam ask Allah to send us food. Abada, what does Allah send them? Manna and salwa. So flour that came down from the heavens, which they ground into, some sort of flour kind of thing, grain that came down to the heaven, which they ground into flour and made bread. So they had heavenly bread. And then they have like a quail or a bird that Allah sent down, and they ate that as well. So they were eating heavenly food. Even then that wasn't a problem for them, because they got bored of it. They said to Musa alayhi salam, why don't you tell Allah, if we could start farming, and because they wanted, look at the mentality of these people. Allah, they had to do nothing, but now they wanted other flavors that they want to start farming. It's another story. Anyway, other miracles that they saw is that they needed water. So Musa alayhi salam struck a rock, and he split open, and then they drank water from, the water came gushing out. There were 12 springs that they came across that they drank from. There was a cloud that was scorching heat in the desert, as you can imagine. That Allah sent clouds to cover them as they traveled through the desert. They saw miracle after miracle. So, and then eventually they settle in Tur, in the Sinai region, in Sinai mountains. At the base of this mountain, so Musa alayhi salam, so in the Christian biblical tradition, it's called the tabernacle. Tabernacle. I can't remember the word. Tabernacle. It's like a temple, where, like a masjid. So Musa alayhi salam takes an oath of allegiance from them at the base of the mountain, that they will basically follow, what you would expect from an oath. Obey Allah's commands, obey the messenger, so on and so forth. So they take that pledge at the base of the mountain, and as to show the gravity of what they've taken allegiance to, Allah is mentioned in the Quran. Allah raises the mountain over. Eventually, Ustadh Abada mentioned in Surah Taha, Allah mentions, and what made you hasten from your people, O Musa? He said, they are close upon my tracks, and I hasten to you, my Lord, that you may be pleased. But then Allah says, but indeed we have tried your people after you departed, and the Samiri has led them astray. So Musa alayhi salam, he receives the command to go on, so he goes up into the mountains, in Mount Tur, to spend time with Allah. He receives, guidance, revelation, so on and so forth. And whilst he's up there, Allah reveals to him, look, while you've been away, the Samiri has led your people astray. So Musa alayhi salam goes hurrying back. So he goes back, and he finds his people are worshipping a golden calf. He summons, and he says to them, O my people, did your Lord not make you a good promise? Such as the covenant that they made at the base of the mountain, the promise of Allah, will give them so on and so forth, and in return they give their allegiance and Allah will reward them. That then the time of its fulfillment too long for you, or did you wish that wrath from your Lord descend upon you? So you broke your promise of obedience to me. They said, we did not break our promise to you by our will, but we were made to carry the burdens from the ornaments of the people of Pharaoh, so we threw them into the fire, and so did the Samiri throw. So they, and he extracted for them a statue of a calf, which had a lowing sound, and he said, this is your God and the God of Musa, but he forgot. All right, before we carry on, I want you to imagine. All right, we've got 2 minutes, yeah? When does Asr finish? Can we carry on after Asr? It's up until 8:30, yeah? We'll hopefully finish by 8 o'clock. Yeah. So, I want you to imagine, look, as I said to you, look, these were a people who did not necessarily have the issue of shirk. They had a strong tradition of prophets, so they received the Tawheed, the monotheism. At the hands of Musa alayhi salam, they saw wonders and miracles that no other nation has ever seen. Yet they're now saying to Musa alayhi salam, oh Musa, sorry, we're worshipping the calf because the Samiri told us to. And the Samiri said that this is your God and you forgot about it. How pathetic. How pathetic. In one sense, it shows how pathetic they were, and how weak and feeble-minded they were, but it also shows what the level of skill and deception the Samiri had, how easily he influenced them, which goes to show that he must have been somebody of high status and influence amongst them. Otherwise, he could not have done what he did. Not only that, Musa alayhi salam summons his brother. Sorry, I've got a sneeze coming, a cough point, but it's not coming. So Musa alayhi salam summons his brother. Oh Harun, what prevented you when you saw them going astray from following me that you have disobeyed my order? And Harun alayhi salam says, O son of my mother, do not seize me by my beard or by my head. Indeed, I feared that what you would say, you caused division amongst the children of Israel and you do not observe or await my word. So Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam, being the younger brother, summons his older brother, exercising authority. If I've got a younger brother, if my brother grabbed me, but I don't have a beard, but you know, it doesn't grow. But if I had a beard and my brother grabbed me by my beard and started telling me off in front of my clan, yeah, whatever, I'm not going to react well to that. But this goes to show that Sayyidina Harun alayhi salam actually submitted to Musa alayhi salam. Despite, in the typical sense, you would expect a younger brother, an older brother to hold ultimate authority and respect over a younger brother. But Sayyidina Harun alayhi salam did not have that. And Musa alayhi salam, in this incident, in this extreme incident, exercised his authority. Sayyidina Harun alayhi salam had to, tell him, look, I didn't disobey you. This is the madness that's going on, essentially. That the Samiri led them astray. I warned them. There's another ayah that Allah mentions previously, that Harun alayhi salam mentions that he warned them and he said, you're only being tested. Which goes to show that in the absence of Musa alayhi salam, the Samiri managed to get control over a portion of the Israelites, or a good portion of the Israelites from who? Harun alayhi salam. So this was not a normal incident. This is one of, in my opinion, this is one of the most egregious things that probably has ever happened in human history. And it's when you look at through in this lens that we're exploring, do you not agree that it takes it to another light that we may not have realized before? This is when my teacher first explained it in these lights, is that this is not a normal, it's like we kind of brush over, yeah, the Israelites worship a golden calf, but look at the circumstances that this is happening in. They were led astray in the company of 2 prophets. So this is not like any old incident. Anyway, you've got like 3 minutes before Asr. We'll carry on after Asr, inshallah. Is anyone leaving after Asr? Okay, so you will be back, inshallah. So, subhanakallahumma bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. We'll carry on. It won't be much longer, inshallah. Then we'll get to the point. Not much longer after this. So, inshallah, we'll carry on after Asr. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu got them to build a golden calf, and not only that, got them to worship it as well. So Musa alayhi salam, قال فما خطبك يا سامري, and Musa alayhi salam said, and what is your case, O Samiri? And the Samiri, listen to what the Samiri says. I saw what they did not see. So I took a handful of the dust from the tracks of the messenger and I threw it, and so did my soul entice me to do so. وَكَذَلِكَ سَوَّلَتْ لِي نَفْسِي. Thus my soul enticed me to do so. So what happens is that the Samiri, he mentions, I saw what they could not see. And so he took. Yes. I'll see you, Michael. Do you want to do it now or later? Do it now or later? Do you have time, or you can stick around for a while and do it later?
Yeah, I can stick around.
Do it now. Okay. Do you want to get him a chair? I bet that you should do it. You should do it. It's your community. He'll have a better link with you. Inshallah, we've got a special gift for us. Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So, mashallah. It just goes to show that sometimes you have something right in front of you that you don't realize that you have a diamond. You think it's just a stone, but actually, this diamond that we have in front of us, we take for granted. So, from what I understand, you just saw one of the brothers coming in and you wanted to come in and take the shahada. Just, what's your name, brother?
It's Michael.
Michael. And Michael, how long have you been researching Islam, etc.? Have you, I'm assuming, is it something that you've been, is it, you have friends or online, or how have you learnt about Islam?
Honestly, so the first time was I had a dream in year 8, so in secondary school, but I've literally just finished sixth form in year 13, so it's a very long time ago. I also used to pray with my friends in year 11, so I just used to follow their instructions and stuff like that. So,
MashaAllah, excellent. So we're going to say something called the Shahada. Essentially, this is your bear witnessing that you believe there's no God but Allah and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his messenger. That enters you into Islam. As part of that, we believe in Allah, we believe in the angels, we believe in the books, the revealed books, we believe in the messengers, we believe in the Day of Judgment, and we believe that Allah is in control of everything. So we don't necessarily list these things out, but that's also part of the Muslim belief, inshallah. So what we'll say the Shahada, and then we'll say it afterwards in English, so you can just repeat after me, inshallah, okay? Okay, bismillah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasul Allah. MashaAllah. So we'll say it again in English. I bear witness that there is none worthy of worship except Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the messenger of God. MashaAllah, congratulations, you've now become Muslim and you have returned to as if you were newborn. All your sins have been wiped clean and you're starting fresh with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you probably get a lot of hugs. If you feel that it's too much, then just say, you know what, I've had enough hugs for today. But I'm going to start with a hug from myself, inshallah. Okay, so we're here to support you. We're here every week at this time and also during the week as well. It's really important that now you have a support system in place to help you learn on this journey, but you can come to these weekly gatherings, inshallah, whenever you want to join us as well. Inshallah, okay? Inshallah.
just for the sake of time, we'll actually continue the talk, inshallah. Marwan, do you have, you want to just take my microphone side?
I'm going to be in greet you after this session.
Why don't you go with,
Alhamdulillah. MashaAllah, I mean, it just goes to show, even with all the, you know what I'm referring to, happening around us right now. We mentioned reform, restore a couple of times. Allah still guides people. We aren't the ones that, Allah is a guide. In fact, we probably turn people more away from Islam. So it goes to show that Allah is a guide, and we pray that the brother lives a life of righteousness, and then he's not turned away because of our actions and how we behave with people. Because we are not truly representative or worthy of the favors that we receive. So Allah bless him, and Allah keep him amongst righteous people and righteous company, and may he also become a source of goodness and righteousness and guide for others as well, inshallah. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So, where we left off, so Musa alayhi salam summons the Samiri and asks him, why did you do, what's going on? And he essentially says, I saw what they did not see. So I took a handful of the dust of the tracks of the messenger and threw it, and thus my soul enticed me to do it. Does anyone know who he means by the tracks of the messenger? Jibreel. So if anybody ever had a doubt about the whole origin story about him being raised by Jibreel, or I don't really buy it, that's fine. It's books of tafsir, isn't it? You can have an opinion. But this is evidence that he saw Jibreel, and he could see Jibreel while others couldn't. And he was unveiled. Meaning that he was unveiled. Allah had unveiled him. So he saw what they could not see. And he refers to Jibreel alayhi salam as the messenger. Knowing what is this kind of thematically showing? That he knows what the truth is. He recognized the role of Jibreel. If you recognize the role of Jibreel, then you recognize what Jibreel carries. Right? They're not absurd, assertions to make. Do you agree or do you not agree? Right? Sorry, go ahead.
Could you also say that he doesn't, in that sense, he doesn't really accept Musa as a messenger as well, in that sense as well? Because he would refer to Jibreel as Jibreel, right? But he refers to him as specifically the messenger, right?
Yeah. Yes. This incident is showing his true light. Because before that, the Israelites revealed to Musa that the Samiri told them that the Samiri told us to worship this thing because he said that you forgot that this was your God. Yeah? So it's been undermining Musa alayhi salam the whole time. He's been undermining Musa alayhi salam the whole time. Musa alayhi salam has been gone. He's used whatever leverage or whatever status or rank or influence that he had over the Israelites to what ultimately deceive them into committing shirk in the most explicit sense. Not some backhand shirk, some disguised shirk, but this is shirk in the most obvious way, where you're worshipping a calf, a golden calf. It's not like it's the level of deception or skill that one needs to deceive a people like that. It's got to be immense. It also shows that he had immense influence as well. So he says, I said what he could not see. So this reveals to us a couple of things. One of the things is that he was unveiled. This also could be an inference as that usually when somebody is unveiled, it's as a result of what? Blessing, right? Usually. Very rare circumstances you can say that evil people now start seeing the angels and good dreams and all these kind of things. It's usually when Allah unveils a person, it's through when they're more and more purified, right? When you go through the levels of purification, the realities become more and more exposed. So this can also indicate that he was once a person like Shaitan. When he was blessed with Jannah, access to Jannah, did Allah take it from him straight away? No. So this could also be like, just because you're unveiled does not mean you're permanently guided. It does not mean you're permanently, you're safe. It's delusion to think that. And this is a key example. The other inference is that okay, he saw Jibreel when he was a child. Why would he not be able to see Jibreel now? That could be another reason. But most importantly, he said, "Sawwalat li nafsi." It's usually like translated as, "and thus did my soul entice me." It's almost like kind of like separating him from the action. Does that make sense? Like, that's how it's translated. Like, oh, my soul told me to do it, so I did it. But what it's actually saying is that I did it because I wanted to. That's what he's actually saying. I did it because I felt like it. Nafsi, nafsi, the whole bit. He was essentially, he became somebody who was governed, but eventually he was governed by whatever he wanted to do. He just did it. And what did he want to do? He wasn't committing zina and going on a bender. He was misguiding people. That's even worse. When you're going on a bender, you do it on yourself. You can make the argument, you harm people, fine. But this is he's going on the worst bender you can go on. I'm gonna destroy myself. I'm gonna destroy everyone with me as well. That's the bender that he's gone on. Yeah. And then Musa alayhi salam says, then go, and indeed it is decreed for you in this life to say, la misasa, which again is translates, very difficult to translate these phrases, because la misasa is not used anywhere else in the Quran. It's translated usually as no contact, untouchable. So it's decreed for you in this life to say no contact. And indeed, you have an appointment in the hereafter you will not fail to keep. And look at your God to which you remained devoted. We will surely burn it and blow it into the sea with a blast. So Sayyidina Musa says to him, okay, you did what you did, you're banished from here on. Yeah? And then your decree in this life is to say la misasa. How else can you translate la misasa? How, as an Arab, when you hear la misasa, what does that say to you?
Like completely banished.
Yeah. So the Mufassirun classically translate or explain this as maybe perhaps he got like leprosy, something like that, where he was socially outcast. Could be, who knows? But we have to admit this is a very strange phrase to use, especially when we couple with the reality of what happened to the Israelites. Does anyone know what happened to the Israelites that worshipped the golden calf? What was the penance? Does anyone know? What happened to the people that worshipped the golden calf? Yes. In effect, they were executed. So I think in the biblical account, the tribe of Levi were ordered to, basically in the Quran it says they were ordered to fall upon their swords, which means that, if you want to be forgiven by Allah, you have to face death. So they were essentially, some narrations say thousands of Israelites were executed or killed, and that was the only way that they could be forgiven. Yeah, because you got to realize the crime. Like, it's not normal shirk, guys. This is shirk 10x. Because they were people that, again, they were people who were already accustomed to Tawheed, firstly. Secondly, they had the blessings of 2 Anbiya. They had the blessings of witnessing miracle upon miracle, have been blessed with manna and salwa and water and provision and safety from Allah. They had only recently taken an oath of allegiance and saw the mountain rise over them. So they, take heed of that, and yet still they cannot be discounted from what they did. Yes, the Samiri was very skillful in deceiving them, but ultimately who bears responsibility for their actions? The individual. So they had to die for their deed. But why is the Samiri being banished? He's the one who did what? Let's list his crimes. What did he do? He led them astray. Yeah. What else did he do?
He went astray himself after being raised by Jibreel.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anything else? He disobeyed the two messengers. He may not become an idolater himself, but Sayyidina Musa basically says to him, well, you're worshipping this calf, we'll show you what you do with it. So some actually Mufassirun say that he was actually a cow worshipper himself, but I'm not too sure about that understanding, because it's not consistent with the rest of, because how can he recognize the messenger, Jibreel as a messenger at the same time? Do you see what I'm saying? There has to be consistency in the narration. So there's some. But anyway, these are obviously, we're not going to go. There's no need to argue these things. We present an idea, whether it's true or not. Allah knows best. Whatever makes sense to us, right? That's not the point. We'll get to the point after. So he led people astray. He made up a lie against Allah and His Messenger. He said that Musa forgot who his God was, and the calf was his God. So it's if anybody deserved death, who deserves death? The Samiri. Is it not strange he's been let go? Not just let go. Musa alayhi salam essentially says, okay, you're gone, but you're finished. He doesn't say, okay, go, ask for forgiveness, Allah will forgive you. He says, no contact. You will say, I'm untouchable, and indeed you have an appointment in the hereafter which you will not fail to keep. He's saying, it's all right. You want to do what you want to do, carry on doing what you want to do. But the day of judgment is here and you will be held to account. Who else is like that? Who else has been told something like that? Do you see where we've come to? Now, I presented this presentation as who the Dajjal could be. And the premise of the discussion was that the Dajjal follows a similar trail as the shaitan. Does this character not it's almost there, isn't it? Not only that, he survives while others die. Allah knows best why, because there isn't anything here that gives us a reason why. We can infer. My suggestion is that Sayyidina Musa recognized him to be who he was, and he was left to himself. Like shaitan, okay, you want to do what you want to do what you want to do. It's Allah basically saying, I have nothing to do with you. You are the creator of your demise. Sorry, sister, go ahead. Okay, all right, if you remember later. So, the other interesting thing, I'll just give a caveat. Remember I said to you that the Dajjal in Musnad Ahmed narration, the Dajjal will not be able to enter 4 sanctuaries: the Kaaba, Makkah, Medina, Baytul Maqdis, and Tur. Where did this incident happen? And where was the Samiri banished from? And if he was banished from a place, is it conceivable that he will return there? Allah knows best, but when I saw that, I was like, okay, things are lining up to an extent. Sorry, sister, go ahead. Yeah.
And he went back and told the Prophet ﷺ, and there was the Prophet ﷺ said that he was a man, right? So then, how can he be man and shaitan at the same time?
That's what we've said, that he's a man. He's not a shaitan. He's not a jinn.
Say that again.
By shaitan, do you mean he's a jinn?
It's because the characteristics are very similar.
Yes. Okay.
To shaitan. So I'm getting slightly.
Okay. So
what do I take away from this? Okay. That's what I'm trying to understand.
What I'm trying to say to you.
Yeah.
Premise. The beginning of the discussion was outlining who the Dajjal is. The whole process of this part of the story of the Samari is to show us Dajjal went through a process of DJ overnight. So just like shaitan erupted in a full firework display of disobedience, the Samari has done the same thing. It happens to be that other elements of the Samari story also line up with the characters of the Dajjal. My eventual conclusion would have been, is going to be, perhaps this person is the Dajjal. Because he predates the Prophet ﷺ, he was banished while others were killed. We don't know what happened to after him. But that, for me, that's irrelevant, or that's not important, because we can't actually make the definitive case, because we haven't been told by Allah or the Messenger. But it was an interesting story. Remember I said the whole idea of speculation, like we can't enjoy these things, but if there is an implication. And that implication throughout all of this is that the Samari was what? He was somebody who was given immense privileges. He was raised by an angel, he was saved by Allah, but he became a Dajjal. At the very least, he became a Dajjal. If he's not the Dajjal, he is a Dajjal for the Israelites, is he not? Is he not? He became the greatest deceiver and got them, a bunch of them killed because he deceived them into worshiping the golden calf. Right? So that's the point. That's the point. The point is that you and I, we might be worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We might be, thinking that I'm sincere. The moment that idea comes in our mind that we are sincere, it develops what? A sense of safety, like, oh, I'm okay. And when you think you're okay, there is no longer a pursuit of improving, a pursuit of self-accountability. And when that happens, even awliya, people who were once awliya, fall. The Samari, mentioned by some as a wali of his time, we fell. Shaitan, a wali of his time, we fell. Dajjal, we can make the case that, actually my teachers haven't mentioned to me, and I trust Dajjal, that Dajjal was also somebody who was favored, but because of his rejection of Allah's decree, he chose vengeance. And the Samari chose vengeance, why? He chose disobedience, why? Why did he choose to disobey Allah? He wanted to be the Musa. But out of the two Musas, Allah chose Musa ibn Imran, and he wasn't chosen. Just like Shaitan. He was displeased with Allah's decree. If he was truly a worshipper and a lover of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you would prefer whatever Allah has chosen. In fact, if he was sensible and he was sincere, he would have seen it as a great opportunity to be under the service and the helper of Musa alayhi salam. But that's not what he wanted. He wanted to be the one. Which goes to show that he was actually worshipping, ultimately, you can say, himself. He wasn't worshipping Allah. In the end, his God was him. So when the golden calf, when the Israelites worshipped the golden calf, who were they actually worshipping in his eyes? Him. Because whose command were they following? His. Do you see how mad this is? How crazy the situation is? So this is, I think this is from Sayyidina Ibrahim Niyas Tijani. I think Ibrahim Niyasi, Allah knows best, but I think from his books of tafsir, there is this quote, if a person is not fortunate in his birth, then the minds of those who bring him up are bewildered, and those who attach high hopes on him are disillusioned. Lo, the Musa who Jibril brought up became an infidel, and the Musa who was raised by Pharaoh became the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hollywood can't even write something like that. That's why they copy these stories. Ultimately, the story is that Allah gave both of them in different circumstances set up to succeed. In one circumstances, our Nabi Musa alayhi salam was given safety and security and all these kind of things. Why? Because when you have blessings, the reaction should be shukr and humility. Similarly, the opposite, you might be in an opposite situation, it still requires a reaction that eventually leads to what? Appreciation of Allah. So the Musa ibn Dhafar, he was also given blessings in a different way. He was raised by an angel. He was saved when others weren't saved. He was given unveilings. But he didn't see them as blessings. He saw them, I deserve it, essentially. I did say to one brother, I was quickly touch upon Safi bin Sayyad. So there's some people mention, okay, what about Safi bin Sayyad? Is he not Dajjal? I don't think he was Dajjal. If he was Dajjal, I think it would have been a lot clearer. And he was definitely a peculiar individual. He himself mentioned that if I had been given the option of being Dajjal, I would have taken it. He also mentioned something like, I know where Dajjal is and blah, 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 blah. He was definitely a peculiar individual. There are some interesting facts about him that some Sahaba actually were certain that he was Dajjal. There was an incident where the Prophet ﷺ went to meet him, and the Prophet ﷺ asked him several questions. One of the questions that he asked him was, what am I concealing? And then the Safi bin Sayyad, as a child, he kept saying dukh, 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 which Prophet ﷺ was actually concealing Surah Dukhan. The Prophet ﷺ basically said to him, you stay at your level. Sayyidina Umar said to Prophet ﷺ, let me just finish him off now. And what did the Prophet ﷺ say to Sayyidina Umar, Ibrahim?
He said, if he's the Dajjal, you won't be able to kill him, but if he's not, you're just killing a child.
Yeah. Saying that this is, you can't do anything about it. Similar to, you can almost say that's similar to, in some light, what Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam said to the Samiri. That's the extent of the punishment I can give you, is to banish you. But really, you deserve more than that. So Allah knows best what that meant. We can infer, but the point of this is not to infer. So this is just to basically, if we're going to have an academic argument about who's the Dajjal, who's not between these two characters, human being, both are Israelite heritage, both. Some say that Safi ibn Sayyad became Muslim later. There's he did actually do that. In prison, no, but he does disappear. The Samiri, we don't know, because his story in the Quran stops at where Sayyidina Musa banishes him. Prolonged life, inconclusive for both. History of transgression or fitna. Safi bin says somewhat. Samiri, yes, definitely. The golden calf incident, as I've made, we can argue that this is one of the most greatest deceptions that's ever been documented that we can see. Chooses to be the Dajjal, inconclusive. Claims to be the Messiah, inconclusive for the Samiri. Misguides and deceives, yes, the Samiri. Knowledge of the scripture, society in the future. Safi bin Sayyad, you can say to an extent, because he was around Sahaba and so on and so forth. Samiri, definitely. Highly intelligent. No, if you want to be Dajjal, you're going to be highly intelligent. And the thing about the golden calf is that some Mufassirun say that he constructed it in such a way that, because the golden calf was making a lowing sound. So one understanding is that he had some really clever engineering skills that when the wind blew, it made a noise. Others say that, when he took the dust from the messenger's tracks, when he threw it upon the golden calf started to make some lifelike sounds, some qualities. Allah knows best. Essentially what I'm saying is that he operated an intelligence above the normal average person. Cannot enter Makkah, Medina, Al-Aqsa, Mount Sinai. The Safi ibn Sayyad supposedly has entered Makkah, Medina. Is inclusive for the Samiri. Access to the unseen, both, yes. You can say Safi ibn Sayyad somewhat, because he was doing peculiar stuff. Yeah. with the Samiri, yes, he saw Jibreel, is one-eyed, other physical features inconclusive for the Samiri, childless. Safi bin Sayyad apparently had children. One of the qualities of Dajjal is that he doesn't have children. And Samiri, we don't know. So is the Samiri Dajjal? What do you guys think? That's the right answer. Allah knows best. So the purpose of this, obviously we've gone through the story of the Samiri, is to essentially show us that when we look at Dajjal, we basically leave it to the first part of the presentation, which is, okay, one eye, does this, does that, and leave it there. Purpose of this was to go through an exercise. Okay, Dajjal, why is it Dajjal the Dajjal? How does he become a Dajjal, and how does that now relate back to me? So in the last part, you said the right thing, Allah knows best, right? Yeah. So these are the mindsets that we uncover from Shaitan and the Samiri. Yeah? Entitlement, malevolence, ingratitude, vengeful. How have they shown ingratitude? Is the key one. How has Samiri shown ingratitude? And how does Shaitan show ingratitude? Go ahead. Yeah, that's one way. Deceptive, obvious. Narcissistic, obvious. Misuse of power and knowledge, Mindset, mindset. Qualities. Yeah. Arrogance and pride. Is that clear to everyone how he was arrogant and pride? Hypocrisy, disdain, rebellious, unremorseful, jealousy and envy of who? Ultimately Musa alayhi salam. Yeah. Love of fame and name. He wanted to be the only one. He wanted to be the chosen one. Whereas what did we say about the example of Musa alayhi salam? He was chosen, but he also wanted to bring up others with him. Whereas the Shaitan and Dajjal, they want to go astray and they want to take others with them as well. The opposite. That's why we learn opposites, because they do the opposites of each other. So it shows us what to do and what not to do. So who else has the qualities remind you of? Obviously Shaitan. Yeah. All right. So how does this now? All right. I'm gonna skim through this quickly because I think we get the. So how does Dajjal now influence us? So in the story of the Samiri, we saw that the Samiri basically influenced the Israelites basically from his position of power. We can see that. When he has a position of power, he was able to deceive them into doing whatever he wanted them to do. Now how that Dajjal operates in the world today is, some say that yes, he operates in the world today, and he does operate in the world even though he's not physically here. He has a spiritual influence, if you like. And this is understood by the Mashayikh. There's different levels. I'm going to skim through it, but it's quite self-evident. Level 1, base desires. Shaitan and Dajjal, how do they influence us through our base desires? Access to pornography, access to entertainment, access to all of these things. We are always, on edge with access to vices, access to all of these things has never been so easy, never in human history. A person can experience sexual content that no other person in a lifetime would experience in 5 minutes. They can do it in 5 minutes, what no person in history could do no other person in history maybe perhaps wouldn't experience in a whole lifetime. That's the level of degeneracy that we are exposed to on a daily basis. Knowledge. So with regards to knowledge, let me get that up. Yeah. So information overload. So we're in the age of AI now. So now the LLMs are just basically producing the models on their own slop that they created. So now slop is creating slop. Now we have to. Now we've got prompt engineers teaching us how to use prompts now to get the best of LLMs. But we live in an information overload. The human being is not meant to, we're not supposed to be overloaded with information. When we have that, what happens? What happens? Sorry? Questions and also confusion. Confusion. How does that cause confusion? doubts, all these kind of things. And ultimately, you give in to authorities who you see as more knowledgeable than you. Yeah. So he controls us through information overload. Also, Dajjal, you got to also remember, Shaitan and Dajjal want his minions to also share some of his characteristics. They want to be the ones. They want to be the the special ones, the love of fame and name. They also want that rubs off on that. They want that to rub off on their minions or their people, because they know that will also lead others astray. So when you're addicted to attention, addicted to self-image and all that kind of stuff, and that's perpetuated by the celebrity culture, influencer culture, all of these kind of things. So my point is that Dajjal manifests in the modern way in many different ways. But the key takeaway from today is that each and every one of us has the capacity to become a shaitan. Which also goes to show each and one of us also has the capacity to become awliya. So when we study Dajjal, we study shaitan, the key takeaway is, how does this now reflect back to me? Do I have these qualities in me? Am I questioning Allah's decree? So and so has been given this. So and so has this rank. So and so, has this blessing. I should have that blessing. Ultimately, what's that saying? That your displeasure with Allah's decree. Do I think I'm deserving of something else more than other people? We may not have reached the point. Probably the point of no return is when you decide, I'm going to deceive. But there are steps before that. Everyone has entitlement, disobedience, and the key thing is that it may not be obvious until it's too late. So this takes me on to the next point. Is obviously you guys are a path of self-improvement, right? So, as I said, Allah sets us up for success. He gives us everything that we need to do to be on the right path. At the very least, each and every one of us has to abstain from the major vices in order to attain Jannah. If we are Abada, what's the narration that if there are two things if the servant abstains from, then I guarantee paradise? Sorry, sister, go ahead. The tongue and the private parts. Yeah. Yeah. So essentially, yeah. So getting paradise, you can say, it's quite easy. Yeah. You just need to abstain from doing wrong with your mouth and doing wrong with your private parts. Essentially, speak no wrong, do no wrong, you'll be all right. Yeah. That's one level, and that's everybody. That's the base. That's the basic level that we all should be attaining towards. So, have you spoken to the people, the brothers and sisters, about the 3 amals, the general 3 amals about? Yeah, okay. So I'm not going to repeat the same. We will be here for the same time. Second one, the friendship of Allah. So, some of us may want an even deeper level of connection with Allah. So, as I said, Shaitan and Samiri, or the Dajjal, if you like, they weren't at level 1. We're at level 1. We're trying to do level 1. They were at level 2. Second pathway is that they became friends of Allah, meaning that they were on a journey of a higher self-actualization, which they fell from because they didn't actually die upon that, which of course is quite dangerous. That's the second pathway. Second pathway is, do we want a closer relationship with Allah? How do we do that? So Abada and the brothers here, they teach a mentoring scheme where these qualities, if you recognize these qualities within yourself, yeah, these Dajjalic shaitanic qualities, they might not be extreme, but it's better to nip it in the bud now before maybe one day it can become extreme. That happens at the second pathway, is where you have a mentor that takes you on that journey, where you are checking in with, okay, I've got this problem, or I'm going through this, it's revealing this about me. So that's a mentorship skill. Friendship with Allah is a structured program in how to attain that through a mentorship scheme, and basically you're guided through the process. Does that make sense? So in fact, when if you relate it back to Dajjal and Shaitan, who was going to be the Samiri's mentor ultimately? It's not a trick question. If he wanted to continue on the journey to the friendship of Allah, Musa alayhi salam. Does that make sense? And Shaitan or Iblis, who was supposed to be the guide for him to help him overcome his blemishes? Adam alayhi salam. So this is the sunnah of Allah. Allah, we are not left to ourselves. Those people who want higher levels of closeness, a higher level of relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a journey that requires a teacher or a mentor that will look after you on that journey. Because when you're left to your own devices, some people can, still attain it, but it's very rare. In most cases, like Shaitan and Samiri, when you're left to your own devices, you may reach a plateau, and at that plateau, everything becomes unveiled. Because when you once may have a level of sincerity, that sincerity is no longer there when you're forced to face your own reality that's within you. Does that make sense? And in the third pathway, which we teach, which we encourage all our prophetic path seminars, is the prophetic legacy. Is where you yourself get involved in the da'wah, in helping others reach, where we help others want to become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, want to change things about their lives, and actualize the purpose of life, how to achieve it. That's what we do. I don't want to go beyond that because you guys have heard these things many times. This is already a center. Usually we go to new places and we say, okay, if you want to do events like this in your place, you're already doing it here. So if you're not on pathway 1 or pathway 2 or pathway 3, think about it, speak to Abada, speak to Marwan. And I've done a botched job of trying to explain it because I know it's almost 4 hours now, 3.5 hours. So so that's what it is, essentially. Does anyone have any questions before the next part? So I think it's a dhikr, right? Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. So I know there's a couple of new people. Just put hands up the first time you're here. Okay. I just want to be crystal clear with what this is. This is like the what do I do next? Okay, so especially for people who are new, but if you're not new, this also applies to you. So pathway 1 is you have your 3 things to do. So long periods of silence, leaving people in a better state from when you first met them, and coming into the presence of Allah on an hourly basis. Who is not familiar with that? So 1, 2, 3 probably. Okay. So in a nutshell, 2-minute summary. We want to become close to God. Yeah? So what practical action do I start off with? And our teachers said it's 3. 1, you leave people in a better state than when you first met them. It's based on the hadith from Abu Dhar. So if I meet you on the street, or if I meet you in the office, I have to leave you better, feeling better, or in a better state than you were when we first met. Does that make sense? It could be someone you meet on the street, you smile. It could be somebody who is in the office having a stressful day, you give them an ear. They can talk and they feel a bit better about themselves, okay? You have to judge it. So every interaction, you're leaving that person in a better state than when you first met them. That is this. So if you never want to come here again and you do this, then you'll be successful, okay? Make sense? Now, somebody may say, okay, I don't want to just be like a bare minimum. I want to actually excel and get really close to God. So that's where comes in. This is now a journey, and we can take you on a journey. And the journey, the destination is the friendship of Allah, friendship of God. That close proximity is like an intimate close friend with God. That's what this is. So if you're interested in this, these aren't mutually exclusive. You can do all three. You may select to do one. So just option 2. Sorry. You may say, okay, I actually want to not just do the bare minimum. I really want to get close to Allah. So that's this. Now, practically, what that means is you come here every Sunday, and you join the WhatsApp group for communication. Okay? So every Sunday we have a gathering here at 7 o'clock, and it goes all the way till 8:30. And you're welcome to join. But what we teach at the center is how to build an intimate connection with Allah, with God. A close and living connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that journey you can start today, and you can come on every Sunday. So if we can ask one of the teams to project the WhatsApp code at the end, just so that people can scan it. Now, for what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did with people is that he didn't just take what he had with Allah and keep it to himself. He shared it with others. And that quality of sharing is the prophetic quality. Even when the Prophet ﷺ was on his own deathbed, he was concerned about the people coming after. Even when the Prophet ﷺ went to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, went to meet God on the Isra and Mi'raj, he could have stayed there, but he didn't. He came back for us. So that is quality of sharing is a prophetic quality. And so if you're interested in really enhancing that connection with Allah and then sharing it with others such that you become prophetic by nature, this is the pathway for you. Practically what this means is that you become a volunteer at the center. So you volunteer whatever skill set you have. The skill set may be in media, it may be in communication, it may be in teaching, it may be in welfare, welcoming people. If somebody's absent, so one thing that we don't have very well here is when somebody's absent for a long period of time, somebody calls them, is everything okay? Yeah, so that's kind of like one absent gap that we have. Whatever skill that you have, you offer it. This is the prophetic legacy. And already from today, we have a team that have actually put together this event and ran it, as the prophetic legacy would say, okay? Those are the three pathways. I think Talha mentioned this last week, didn't he? Okay, so practically, this is what we are talking about. If you're interested in pathway 3, we would like your name. So if you give it to Ikhlas at the front, and then essentially we'll add you to the volunteers list. Pathway 2, just come here, benefit, implement, traject yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and join the WhatsApp group, inshallah. So just wanted to give a few details before I then pass it back. Jazakallah.
Just a dhikr. So introduce it in the shop.
So now, inshallah, we'll be going and doing the dhikr. This is a prophetic practice that is well established in our Islamic tradition. But the main thing that you do in this dhikr is to be in the correct mindset. So now one should think and know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with me. He's with me in the breath that I take. He's with me in who's controlling your heartbeat. Who's controlling the blood in your veins? Who's controlling the arteries and blood flow and cells and hemoglobin and your digestion system? This is what it means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with you. Then once you understand this and get into this state, one key has opened where you now can communicate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second is that Allah is hearing me. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hears what we say, but can He hear what we don't say? Of course He can. So it's not just with our physical tongue that we can speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah hears our thoughts. So now, once you understand Allah is with you and He is you, you've opened up, you can say 2 keys have unlocked. 2 keys of communication of the heart. And the third is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is seeing you. He sees that you're here. He sees your every move. He sees when you're struggling. He sees when you're happy. So this is the correct mindset now to have while this dhikr is taking place. And it's like you're communicating with God with no barriers in between. There's nothing in between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the first stage, you can say, of ihsan, that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam described ihsan as you worship Allah as if you see Him. So this is now the time and the correct mindset to have when going into this dhikr, inshallah.
It's a loud dhikr, so you can join in as well, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم. له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض. من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه. يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء. وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم. يصلون على النبي. يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه. صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا. مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم هو الحبيب الذي ترجى شفاعته لكل هام من الأهوال مقتحم لا يصلي وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم فاعلم أنه لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فاعلم أنه لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. أستغفر الله العظيم الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله العظيم الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه. أستغفر الله العظيم الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه. وهو الغفور الودود ذو العرش المجيد. وهو الغفور الودود ذو العرش المجيد ذو الجلال والإكرام ذو الجلال والإكرام ذو الجلال والإكرام ذو الجلال والإكرام ذو الجلال والإكرام. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وأصحابه وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. صدق الله العظيم. اللهم يا ربي بجاه سيدنا محمد بن عبد الله صلى الله عليه وسلم اجمع بيننا وبين سيدنا محمد بن عبد الله في الدنيا قبل الآخرة. يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك ولعظيم سلطانك. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. يا ربنا لك الحمد اللهم لك الحمد كله والشكر كله يا أرحم الراحمين. Allah, Allah forgive us, have mercy upon us, Allah, for all the times we forget, when we are ungrateful. We are certainly your ungrateful servants, undeserving servants, Ya Arhamar Rahimin, Allah. When we falter, when we go astray, Allah, we seek your mercy and your favor to call us back on the path of goodness, the path of righteousness, the path of those whom you have favored, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Allah, forgive us, have mercy upon us, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. All the brothers and sisters who have attended today, Allah bless them. Any difficulty that they are going through, whether they speak about it or not, whether others know about it or not, whether they are suffering silence or not, Allah, you hear them, you know of their issues, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Allah, help them and have mercy upon them and guide them through any difficulties, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Allah, all this community, Allah bless them. Allah bless the brothers and sisters who serve this masjid, who serve this community space, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Allah bless them, keep them upon the path of righteousness, keep the intentions pure. Allah give them the ability to benefit more and more people, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Allah save us from the whispers of shaitan, the whispers of our nafs. Allah protect us and save us from the evil that is within us, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Protect others from the evil that is within us, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Allah may allow us to take lesson from those who have gone astray in the example of shaitan and DAJJAL. Allah save us from their fitna and the fitna of shaitan, the fitna of al-Masih al-DAJJAL. Allah, Ya Akram al-Akram, and save our progeny and our families, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Ya Akram al-Akrameen, Allah save us from the fire of Jahannam, save us from the other distractions and evils in this life, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Allah, call us back when we forget to you, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Allah, there is none to guide other than you, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Ya Akram al-Akrameen. Ya Allah, all those who are suffering in this land and in around the world, whether they are Muslim or non-Muslim, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Allah, send them respite. Allah, if they are suffering at the hands of oppressors, Allah, stop the oppression, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Allah, forgive us for our weakness, forgive us for our cowardice and our inability to stop evil, Ya Arhamar Rahimin, around the world. Allah, bless our households, bless this masjid, bless this community. Ya Akram al-Akrameen, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum. In these blessed months of Muharram, Ya Arhamar Rahimin, Allah, allow us to turn to you in sacrifice. Allah, the sacrifice that we make or that we intend to make are none like the sacrifice of our master Sayyidina Imam al-Hussein, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Allah, in these blessed days, Allah, he was martyred. He's one of the greatest examples for us, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Allah, allow us to take heed from his life in his example. Bless his family and the blessed family of the Prophet ﷺ and the sacrifice. Accept it from them, elevate them, Ya Arhamar Rahimin, Ya Akram al-Akrameen. Allah, make us amongst those who are raised with Sayyidina Imam al-Hussein, Sayyidina Imam al-Hassan, Sayyidina Ali, Sayyidatuna Fatima, Sayyidina Rasulullah, and the Anbiya and the Khulafa al-Rashideen and the Sahaba, Ya Arhamar Rahim, all the righteous, Ya Akram al-Akrameen. Any goodness that has come from this, Ya Allah, is from you, Ya Rahman Rahim, Allah. All the mistakes and all the blemishes are from myself, Ya Rahman Rahim, Allah. Keep us all on the path of righteousness and the path of guidance, and forgive us for our shortcomings, past and present, Ya Rahman Rahim, Allah. Ya Akram al-Akrameen, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, برحمتك نستغيث. فصل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين آمين. Sorry about the length. I know it's been a hot day. Inshallah, that was useful. We didn't get to do a Q&A, but if there's one or two questions, maybe I can take it and then we'll conclude for tonight. If not, it's cool, inshallah. Cool. Hopefully that was useful. Thank you for inviting me, and inshallah. We'll see you soon. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.